before we get started on Week 6, there is one set yet to cover from Week 5, and we've had an eye out for this one for a while. This is the Ontario Oguris taking on the East Coast Espurr, and you might recall that during the draft recap, I asked each of these coaches who would win this matchup. And the answers that I got pointed in a certain direction, but we'll see what actually happens here. The Oguris have brought their usual Mega Floette supported by Incineroar, Volcarona, and Maushold, although any of those Pokemon could be running an offensive set of their own. Volcarona especially able to set up with the same supports that Floette benefits from. Maushold has proven very powerful in the past just clicking Population Bomb, although you probably don't want to be clicking Population Bomb into almost anything that the Espurr have brought here, so my guess is it's just a straightforward support Maushold. We've seen the Dusk form Lycanroc a few times as well. That could be pretty strong in this matchup, able to, of course... I mean, there's nothing weak to Rock on the other side except the Scovillain, and Scovillain, if it Mega Evolves, will burn the Lycanroc. But Lycanroc has coverage to hit things like Toxapex, Tyranitar, Mamoswine, and Klefki very hard. It'll depend on its set, of course. And the one other Pokemon here for the Oguris this week is Serperior. I don't know if they've brought Serperior before. I definitely didn't remember that they have it. Even though Serperior is one of my favorite Pokemon, you'd think I'd keep an eye on it. That's how much attention it's gotten so far this season. But Serperior is definitely looking fairly powerful into the possible Sand mode from the Espurr. Notably, of course, it is weak to a Mamoswine Ice Shard, but otherwise it's faster and an offensive threat into Mamoswine and Tyranitar. It's a little bit afraid of Toxapex, but it'll hit Toxapex hard with a boosted Leaf Storm without having to worry about getting poisoned by Baneful Bunker. And, I mean, it's afraid of Scovillain, but yeah, if it's an offensive set, it can definitely put in some work. It could also be a screen set to help a teammate set up, which would suit the Oguris pretty well with their general game plans so far this season. On the Espurr side, well, like I said, they're very well covered for Population Bomb, as Toxapex can poison Maushold with Baneful Bunker. They have 2 normal resists and an immunity, and they have Scovillain able to burn it with Spicy Spray. They also... I mean, they brought their Floette answers as well, right? Toxapex resists that Fairy-type damage and can poison it. Klefki is also a Fairy resist. Scovillain is also a Fairy resist, and a little bit more of an offensive threat than something like Toxapex or Klefki likely is. They can use Mimikyu's Disguise to buy a turn against some kind of boosted attacker, maybe even set Trick Room if the position is right against something like Floette, because there are not a lot of fast Pokemon on the Espurr side this week. In fact, I think Mimikyu is the fastest one that they've brought. So some of their Pokemon might benefit from Trick Room, or Mimikyu could be... I don't know if Mimikyu is an offensive threat in this matchup, but I don't know, it's not impossible. They also can chip things like Floette and Volcarona with sand damage, and of course Volcarona and Incineroar are pretty vulnerable to moves like Rock Slide. So they definitely have some strong pieces to match up well into what the Oguris like to do, but we'll see whether that's enough to stop a team that nobody has been able to stop so far. Or will the Oguris perform perhaps even better than their coach might have thought. So Lycanroc leads with Floette against Mimikyu and Mamoswine. We see Lycanroc switch out right away to Incineroar, but it's Oblivious Mamoswine, so it won't be affected by the Intimidate. Mimikyu will. Only for Mimikyu to show a white herb that restores its attack stats. So the most likely thing that's here to cover for probably is that Intimidate, right? Is there anything else that's fairly likely here? I don't know what stat drops are likely to be going into Mimikyu other than the Intimidate. I can't think of a move that Mimikyu gets that would be an issue for lowering its stats. It's not like it's going to click Close Combat, I don't think, so probably is just for the Intimidate, which makes sense. Mimikyu is potentially a strong physical attacker, but the Intimidate's an obvious threat. Anyway, Floette Mega Evolved while I was thinking that through. Floette activating its Fairy Aura, of course, means that Mimikyu also gets boosted Fairy-type damage, so that with the White Herb could hit pretty hard. But first, the Dazzling Gleam will come out. It'll break the Disguise on Mimikyu, do less than half to Mamoswine, notably. And Mamoswine hits back with an Iron Head, showing that it has some super effective coverage into Floette. Although it doesn't just one-shot, it does quite a bit of damage. And Mimikyu does set Trick Room here, so Floette, as I suggested, Floette being kind of naturally fast is at a bit of a disadvantage in Trick Room. We see it switch out here to Maushold. Maushold is also a fast Pokemon. But like I said, I suspect this is probably a support Maushold, so it probably has Friend Guard to help Incineroar stick around longer, and it can protect, and I don't know what else it can do, but we'll see. Incineroar just goes straight for a Flare Blitz into Mimikyu and crits and knocks it out, so much for Mimikyu hitting things hard in this matchup. It won't get an opportunity to do that, but its teammates might still benefit from the Trick Room while it's still there. Mamoswine goes for Rock Slide, misses Floette, chips Incineroar down. Not great damage, actually, with that non-stab Rock Slide into Incineroar. I guess lacking stab and it being a spread move is kind of felt here, as Incineroar also recovers off the damage with a Citrus Berry. We see Scovillain come in now for the Espurr. Mamoswine switches out to Toxapex. Scovillain Mega Evolves. The Flare Blitz goes into the Toxapex slot. Of course, Incineroar can't be burned anyway. It would have done more damage to Scovillain at no significant cost, but Toxapex takes just a little bit from that. We see a Scovillain Flamethrower crit the Mousehold, so crits both ways so far, but this one doesn't get a KO. It does 90% to Mousehold. As Mousehold goes for Encore, trying to... What was it trying to do? What would it have done? Well, I guess if they'd stayed in, Mamoswine would have not necessarily been locked into Rock Slide because it would underspeed Mousehold, so it had the opportunity to switch moves. Maybe they were just trying to shut down some of its coverage options so that, like, if they have to bring Floette back in while the Trick Room's still up, Mamoswine can't freely swap to Iron Head or something, although Floette is pretty low already. So I don't know what that Encore is necessarily trying to do. It does lock Scovillain into Flamethrower, which is not necessarily ideal for Scovillain because there's one fire resist on the field already for the Oguris, and they have another one at full health in the back. Wait, what am I saying? Scovillain was already on the field. Never mind anything to do with the Mamoswine. That's just not correct. It's just a commentary error. Scovillain's already on the field. They probably are just trying to lock it into something like a Flamethrower so that they can use the resistances to kill more Trick Room turns. That's my guess here. Or maybe they thought it would go for, like, Rage Powder, and then they could prevent it from attacking while Trick Room is still up. In any case, it's locked into Flamethrower. It switches out to Mamoswine. Mousehold switches out to Lycanroc. Incineroar will get Toxic Poisoned, but it gets a Parting Shot into Mamoswine, so it doesn't have to worry about the poison damage just yet as Floette comes in here. Mamoswine's at -1, but Floette's at pretty low HP. Lycanroc and Floette will both protect, though, on the last turn of Trick Room, as Toxapex reveals Haze. Makes a lot of sense to get rid of Calm Mind boosts on Floette or Quiver Dance boosts on Volcarona, but as we can see, it also gets rid of the Parting Shot drop on Mamoswine. It would also get rid of Intimidate drops on a teammate, so Haze does a ton for the East Coast Espurr in this matchup. Very, very good bring, because the Oguris tend to focus a fair bit on setup. They also, of course, could have brought Melodic with Coil, and then they also have ways to lower their opponent's stats. Haze is kind of just a straight advantage on both sides of the board for the Espurr. In this case, it does restore Mamoswine's attack stat, but the Trick Room is over. They're not getting it back in this game. Lycanroc avoids a high horsepower here. So the Encore did force Scovillain to switch out. Well, I mean, Lycanroc could have come in on a Flamethrower. It would have taken a bit of damage, but that doesn't help the Espurr, really, unless it burns. So basically, they forced Scovillain to switch out, got Lycanroc in safely, and were able to protect through that last turn and get out of the Trick Room without any of their Pokemon knocked out. Now, Incineroar's back in here. It'll intimidate Toxapex, which probably doesn't matter. Toxapex shows Wide Guard, looking to stop a Rock Slide, but Lycanroc instead goes for Stone Edge. Stronger attack, no spread, not stopped by Wide Guard, knocks out the Mamoswine, even though Mamoswine is a little bit over half HP. Scovillain is back now. Toxapex will get faked out as Lycanroc fearlessly just Stone Edges the Scovillain. It's a critical hit. I don't know the calc of Lycanroc Stone Edge into Scovillain. It's a powerful stab, super effective attack, but also it has a high crit rate, so the crit's not exactly shocking. Lycanroc will get burned, but it'll show a Lumberry and not care about that. I was going to say they probably don't care about that anyway because they're so far ahead at this point, although Mousehold is low, Floette is low, and Incineroar is poisoned. If Lycanroc gets burned, maybe the Toxapex can still grind this one out somehow, but Lycanroc showing the Lumberry, one-shotting the Scovillain so it doesn't have to worry about getting burned again. Now we'll probably be looking to do a lot of damage to this Toxapex. Just go straight for the Stone Edge again. It's a critical hit again. It does have that boosted crit rate, but I don't know. The Lycanroc really decided that it loves its trainer this week, is all I can say. I thought maybe they'd like protect around a Baneful Bunker, but I guess Stone Edge also is not a contact move, so Lycanroc doesn't have to worry about being poisoned by that, and it's free to just attack and keep up the pressure. Flare Blitz will do 15%. It's not as impressive as damage goes, but it's not nothing, right? It more than offsets those leftovers. We get the Baneful Bunker here, but Stone Edge doesn't care. Well, actually, both these Pokemon are already poisoned, so it doesn't matter anyway. And Toxapex gets a little bit of recovery, goes for the double Baneful Bunker, doesn't get it. It does take a non-crit Stone Edge, but not the follow-up with Flare Blitz. And so the Oguris, even though they were even though 3 out of 4 of their Pokemon were knocked to very low HP, and the last one was poisoned, they actually take the 4-0 in this game. They don't lose a single Pokemon, as Lycanroc, by the way, lands all its Stone Edges. I don't think it missed a single one, so that's some good luck for the Oguris as well. But Stone Mist doesn't live up to its name, and Lycanroc just clinically gets rid of these last few Pokemon after the Mimikyu was knocked out earlier and the Oguris got through Trick Room. So it feels like it's probably closer than the scoreboard would say, but Lycanroc locked in. The Oguris took game 1, and we'll just have to see if the Espurr can slow them down more effectively in game 2. But again, just dodging some attacks might make a big difference by itself. We're getting crit fewer times. Serperior leads now with Lycanroc against Toxapex and Klefki. Serperior actually showing Taunt immediately. I did say it could be a support Serperior with screens. I didn't think about Taunt. It taunts the Klefki, but Klefki, of course, gets Prankster to get priority on its status moves, and Serperior doesn't. So the fact that Taunt came out first suggests that the Klefki probably didn't go for a status move. The alternative is that it has Magician instead of Prankster, but that doesn't seem very likely. In any case, we get Psychic Fangs doing more than half to Toxapex right away. They didn't show that move in game 1. They just relied on the Stone Edge to break through the Toxapex, and it worked out for them, but it's interesting that they kept the Psychic Fangs hidden until now. We know it's not Scarf Lycanroc. We saw the Lumberry earlier, so it's not Choice Locked. But yeah, they didn't reveal the Psychic Fangs until game 2, and I guess that might pay off for them as the Toxapex gets surprised by an attack that will not miss it without any evasiveness modifiers. And of course, Psychic Fangs also would have broken through screens if the Klefki had set any up. But yeah, they had that reliable attack in their back pocket the whole time. Pretty tricky. Toxapex goes for Toxic into Serperior, and we see the other possibility that I didn't think of. The Klefki did go for a status move, but it's Trick Room. So it has some of the lowest priority in the game, even with the Prankster boost. It does not get the Trick Room up here. Lycanroc is free to attack, but it actually switches out here as Mousehold comes in. Serperior is poisoned, but it's just going for the boost with Leaf Storm, getting its contrary, boosting its special attack. Klefki lands a Steel Beam into Mousehold. It does a flat 70%, but that'll cost like half of Klefki's HP as well. Probably the only attack this Klefki has. Mousehold gets poisoned. Mousehold won't stick around for long, but I don't think Mousehold needs to, right? Because it's probably just here to help Serperior get going. Toxapex goes for the Baneful Bunker here, but we see Mousehold click Fake Tears into Klefki. Klefki's at half HP thanks to its own Steel Beam. Mousehold drops its special defense with the Fake Tears. -2 special defense on Klefki, +2 special defense on Serperior. Serperior goes for the Leaf Storm. Could have been a huge attack there, but it misses. But what's Klefki doing back? Steel Beam for 35, probably nerfed by Friend Guard, and Klefki knocks itself out. So Serperior takes some damage that it might not have taken if it had landed its own attack, but in the end, it also doesn't get an additional boost that it could have gotten, but in the end, it's still here and Klefki isn't. Granted, Serperior and Mousehold both poisoned. They're getting worn down. Mimikyu comes in now. That won't be knocked out quickly because of its disguise. As I don't know what's going on in the chat. Can't explain that. But Toxapex will get encored into Baneful Bunker. Mimikyu will get taunted, so there's still no Trick Room coming out. The Espurr is still trying, but it doesn't work out for them. Mousehold drops to the Toxic this turn. Serperior has one turn left, but Mimikyu can't protect because it's taunted. Toxapex is guaranteed to protect if it stays in, so you have no reason not to attack the Mimikyu slot. Lycanroc is on the field to double that slot. Serperior might be faster than Lycanroc. It has slightly higher base speed, but it depends on how they're trained. It would be kind of unfortunate to break the disguise with a Leaf Storm and then not get the boosted damage into Mimikyu, but we'll see what actually happens here, what order things come out in. Baneful Bunker from Toxapex. Serperior goes for Dragon Pulse into that slot, so I guess they didn't expect the Toxapex to stay in. I'm a little bit surprised that Serperior is doing that with its very last turn in this game, but there's probably some read they made there that I just don't see. And then Psychic Fangs will break the disguise on Mimikyu. Or maybe it was just trying to make the highest upside play while Serperior was boosted, because we do see Serperior move before Lycanroc here. So maybe they just calculated that the most Serperior could do here to accomplish something in this game would be to get boosted damage into a non-Mimikyu target, and so that upside was worth going for. Or maybe there was a read that I just haven't figured out. But anyway, Superior will drop the poison damage here after the Disguise is broken and after a Play Rough does more than half to Lycanroc. The Oguris are down to their last 2 Pokemon. The Espurr still have 3. Floette comes in, Mega Evolves. Toxapex fails the double Baneful Bunker. Lycanroc Psychic Fangs does half to Mimikyu before Moonblast knocks it out. And the Espurr now down to 2 Pokemon as well. The Encore ends on Toxapex. Mamoswine hits the field. But do they have enough to stop Mega Floette? Moonblast does 75% to Mamoswine, as we see GG's in the chat from the East Coast Espurr. The Espurr clearly thinking that they don't have enough to close this one out as Lycanroc finally stops playing like it's holding a choice item, shows its last attack, close combat, knocks out the Mamoswine, and only Toxapex is left. It poisons Floette, but Floette is at full HP before this toxic damage, and we know that Toxapex takes a lot from the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs come out here actually into a Baneful Bunker, so Lycanroc gets poisoned. I'm almost surprised it didn't go for Stone Edge there, but I don't think the Oguris need to be making plays like that, especially since it still has the Lumberry to cure the poisoning. Floette shows Psychic now, so both of these Pokemon have super effective coverage into Toxapex, and Toxapex all alone here narrowly takes a Psychic, survives a 1%, but drops to the Psychic Fangs. Floette kindly letting Lycanroc get that last KO, as Lycanroc had an absolutely huge week here. Landing the Stone Edges was big, but also Lycanroc was just taking KOs left and right in both games, with the Lumberry helping it clutch up against status conditions in both games as well. I think it got burned in Game 1 and poisoned in Game 2. So that was a fun set to watch. The Ontario Oguris, perhaps exceeding their own expectations, remain undefeated with a win now over the East Coast Espurr. And it remains to be seen whether anyone else can beat this team. So in any case, they also showed that while their team has played in kind of a straightforward way so far this season, it definitely has some tricks up its sleeve. So we'll see what happens. And it starts, of course, in Week 6, which we'll jump to right now. It is Week 6 of this VGC Regulation MB style Prismatic Draft League season. The season's been flying by so far. We are now in the second half, and that means the playoff races in both pools are definitely getting more interesting, as there are a bunch of tough matchups ahead with some more stakes, some clearer stakes, I should say, for a lot of the teams than we could identify earlier in the season. That said, there is still time for teams to make trades, and some coaches have been doing that as they try to shake up their rosters to get the best playoff positioning they can. This week we start with Pendragon United dropping Kangaskhan for Staraptor. I'm not entirely sure why this was done, although I will say that Staraptor was more expensive than Kangaskhan. If you remember all the way back in the draft recap, the coach of Pendragon United kind of miscalculated their points in the draft and ended up with a few left over. And I don't even think that all of those have been used up now on this move, but that cushion did make room for Staraptor to be added here. The one thing that I've seen in the Discord is that while this coach does like the Fake Out Last Resort set on Kangaskhan, they had some trouble finding other things for Kangaskhan to do. I don't know all the details on that. I'm just going off of one message that I saw. But Staraptor is definitely an interesting Pokemon, of course. It gives them an Intimidate where they didn't have one of those before. It gives them a fast threat that isn't going all in on Dragonite or even Mega Dragonite when this team has wanted to Mega Evolve Mawile most of the time. It gives them that fast final Gambit option, which could be helpful for setting up some kind of Trick Room game plan or something along those lines. Of course, Kangaskhan Fake Out also was helpful to that, but they do still have a Fake Out user remaining in Pikachu. But I'm kind of just spitballing here things that Staraptor might bring to the table for this team, in large part based on my more hard Trick Room oriented draft last season where I had Staraptor. But this is a different team from that one. This is not a hard Trick Room team, but it has leaned on Trick Room pretty often throughout the season. I guess Staraptor does also give it another Tailwind setter apart from Dragonite, but I think we're going to have to watch how things play out over these next few weeks and find out exactly what Staraptor brings to the table here that made it more worthwhile than clicking Fake Out and Last Resort with Kangaskhan, which is a very powerful combination, but I can understand if Kangaskhan felt like kind of a limited Pokemon and what it could do. And then we have a bigger shakeup with the one other set of trades for this week, as this is a shakeup, all right. The East Coast Espurr have dropped Annihilape, Noivern, and Mimikyu and picked up Kangaskhan, Mega Gyarados, and Houndstones. So Kangaskhan, not a free agent for very long in Pool A. Dropped, of course, by Pendragon United, but then promptly picked up by somebody else. Annihilate was the first round pick for the East Coast Espurr. I don't think we saw it show up a single week, and that is supported by what I saw about this trade in the Discord once again, where the Espurr revealed that they had intended not to bring Annihilate a single time until the playoffs, but with the Espurr's playoff position being in jeopardy at this point. I was going to say being kind of shaky, but they are just outside the playoff picture right now, as we'll see in a moment. I guess it was time to lock in and shake this team up and try to salvage the season is basically what it comes down to. So for all the talk about building out some game plans around that first round pick Annihilate, we never actually saw it, and it doesn't look like we will now. Certainly not on this team. Maybe someone else will pick it up, but we'll just have to wait and see. As for what they gain here, it's an interesting mix of Pokemon. I mean, Mega Gyarados is a very strong setup attacker, so it makes sense with a lot of the supports that this team has, especially with Kangaskhan being added here as previously mentioned, one of the best fake-out users. But they also have things like Screen's Klefki and, of course, Redirection from Mega Scovillain, so they have a number of different ways to create openings for Gyarados to set up. There's also a lot of residual damage potentially on this team with Pokemon like Scovillain burning things, Toxapex poisoning and infesting things. Sandaconda can even do residual damage if it wants to set up sand. Rotom can burn things as well. So they have ways to wear opponents down and create some openings for Gyarados to get KOs by getting prior damage on Pokemon. And also there are a lot of ways that this team can make room for Gyarados to set up. Gyarados also can... Granted, you can't Mega Evolve both Gyarados and Scovillain in the same game, but even without Mega Evolving, Scovillain can still give it redirection support, but also even without Mega Evolving, Gyarados can complement Pokemon like Tyranitar and Mamoswine, helping them to cover some of their weaknesses, notably helping Tyranitar cover its ground weakness, being a flying type when it's not Mega Evolved that can sit on the field next to Mamoswine. So I see a lot of different ways that Gyarados can fit neatly into this team and maybe be more of a more immediately dangerous setup threat than Annihilate ever was going to be. Houndstone makes a lot of sense here for the same reason that the Revolting Raichus have done well with Houndstone in Pool B. It's a Sand Rush attacker with last respects, so it can be a pretty devastating late game cleaner if you have Sand set up with either of your two Sand setters on this team. Does Klefki get the move Sandstorm? They might have 3 Sand setters, I'm not sure, but certainly Tyranitar and Sandaconda can set it up, and Houndstone can take advantage. But Houndstone also doesn't have to be offensive, because it can run some strong support sets with moves like Will-O-Wisp and Ally Switch, so that can keep opponents guessing when they see it at Team Preview. And Houndstone, again, can help Pokemon like Tyranitar and Gyarados get going as offensive threats, or it can be the cleanup threat itself. So could be very, very powerful on this team. All these moves make a lot of sense to me. The fake-out support from Kangaskhan I've talked about less, but again, it's pretty valuable. And even if you just run Last Resort as your only other move, I mean, Kangaskhan is going to hit a lot of things very hard, and Pokemon like Gyarados, Scovillain, and Mamoswine can cover the things that are not hit as hard by Kangaskhan. So Noivern and Mimikyu, I think, didn't quite fit this team as well as these other Pokemon do. I can kind of just accept that as face value. Noivern is interesting as a Tailwind setter and ground immunity to pair with Mamoswine, but it's just not as powerful as Gyarados. Mimikyu is an interesting Trick Room Pokemon, but this team doesn't do a ton in Trick Room, and I do think Houndstone gives them sort of a more threatening Ghost type in some situations. It's unfortunate that we never saw the Annihilate pop off, but yeah, these moves make a lot of sense, and this team could still be in position to make a lot of noise in the late stretch of the season. But it's going to be a little bit hard to untangle their position in the standings, because we're going to go to the standings in Pool A now. And once again, we are missing one set. It is possible, once again, that I'll have covered it by the time the video goes up, and I'll actually have put it in front of this. But at the time that I'm recording this segment, I don't have a result between the Ontario Oguris and the East Coast Espurr. So those two teams just have played one set fewer than the others. Notably in my table here, that puts the Espurr right in the middle, and they probably will hang around there if they beat the Oguris, but they could drop further, certainly below Pendragon United if they lose to the Oguris. So you can mentally fill in the result if we have one. It's possible that they that they drop a little bit once all of the Week 5 results are in. But we look at Pool A broadly. I'll also note that the Oguris coach did say that he could beat anyone except the Espurr, so that might give us a hint at the result, but I don't have it right now. Looking at Pool A, so the Oguris are still the only undefeated team. That is kind of with an asterisk because they haven't played Week 5 yet, but the Grampas are right behind them at level on differential, and with just the one extra result in the loss column, they have the same number of wins. So if the Oguris lose Week 5, they actually drop below the Grampas, but they haven't lost a single set yet, so we can't just assume that it's going to happen. And then there's an interesting fight for the last 2 playoff spots. The Dapper Digletts, Minnesota Marshadows, and Poblano Ho-Ho Peppers are all tied with a record of 3-2 right now. They're all within 2 differential of each other, so the tiebreakers could definitely come into effect down the stretch, but with 4 more weeks to play, it's possible that they'll sort things out without quite as close a split, but it's also possible that they won't. And then, I mean, if the Espurr win Week 5, they're right there in that mix as well. Pendragon United and the Oceanic Oshawotts are only they're only 1 win behind, so there's still a lot that could happen here. And I imagine we'll probably see about the same in Pool B, although I don't remember right now, but let's take a look. We have 2 undefeated teams here, the Halifax Masquerainmen, your Halifax Masquerainmen, and the Revolting Raichus have been in a perfect tie for multiple weeks now, but it is going to be broken this week as we will be playing each other. The Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s have a strong grip right now on that 3rd playoff spot, and I mean, there is just a clear top 4 in this pool right now, as the Hisui and Houndstones are the only other team with a winning record, so it is possible that those will be the 4 playoff teams that come from this pool, but it is too early to declare that, as the Snowpoint Snorunts, Calgary Camerupt, and Louisiana Hypercutters are all just a little bit behind, and I mean, is anybody even mathematically... No, nobody's even mathematically eliminated yet, I don't think. Maybe the Fluffy Friends, but I'm not going to try to do the math. There are 4 weeks left. They're only 3 wins behind the Houndstones. So while it looks like there's a clear top 4 right now, it is still possible that things get shaken up, and we'll have to watch how things play out and see. But I've already said, this week's matchup for the Masquerainmen, it's a pretty scary one. That tie in first place is getting broken no matter what, because we are taking on the Revolting Raichus, and they have a really difficult draft to prepare for. The Raichus have Mega Tyranitar, Mega Garchomp, Corviknight, Heatform Rotom, Gourgeist, Primarina, Toxicroak, Mega Steelix, Houndstone, and Qwilfish. I don't know why, something about that specific Champions Party Sprite for Qwilfish keeps making me think it's Hisui and Qwilfish. I'm not sure Hisui and Qwilfish is even in Champions. I think it probably isn't, but something about, I think it's the facial expression that keeps mixing me up. It's happened multiple times this season, but that is regular Jotonian Qwilfish. So the Raichus, I will say, even though we're tied in the standings, I've had some good luck some weeks, and also the Raichus have just an incredibly well-balanced, difficult team to deal with. I do feel like the underdog this week, and I've brought hopefully some solid stuff. One notable weird tech that we'll cover in a moment to try to deal with this, but I was being pulled in a bunch of different directions just trying to prepare for this team. Obviously, they have 3 Megas, and there is some overlap in what those Megas do. They have Tyranitar setting up the sand, whether or not it's Mega Evolved. They have 2 different Sand Force Megas in Garchomp and Steelix, boosted by the sand. Both of those are ground types as well. But, of course, Mega Garchomp is not especially fast. It infamously loses speed when it Mega Evolves, but it's actually still the fastest Pokemon in their draft, even after that speed drop. And of course, even faster if it doesn't Mega Evolve, which it doesn't have to do. While Mega Steelix is more of a bulky Trick Room attacker kind of Pokemon. So the Megas complement each other in certain ways in that sense. Mega Tyranitar also well equipped to win a Weather War because it can get Sandstorm activated again without switching out when it Mega Evolves. And then it also just gets a bunch of stats from doing that. They have some sort of classic sand team pieces around them. Corviknight as a ground immunity that can sit on the field comfortably next to Garchomp or Steelix clicking Earthquake. And also just a bulky potential setup Pokemon that is not affected by sand damage, and also with Mirror Armor can disincentivize opponents from bringing Intimidate against all 3 of the physical attacking Megas here. And then Corviknight also can set Tailwind to make up for the kind of iffy speed stats on Pokemon like Tyranitar, Garchomp, and Steelix. They have Houndstone for a Sand Rush attacker with Last Respects, as I've already talked about in this very video. They have a couple of strong special attackers in Rotom and Primarina, which have some solid type synergies with their physical offensive core. Primarina has looked like a menace throughout the season. It's a strong Pokemon, but probably the strongest it's ever looked to me has been shredding some teams that are trying to shut down the physical threats, but don't have enough Primarina answers as well. Rotom also is another ground immunity that they can put next to Garchomp or Steelix. They have solid Trick Room options, as I've mentioned. Gourgeist, I believe they get access to every Gourgeist form, but in all these years I've never properly learned how the Gourgeist forms work. I know they have different stats. I don't really know what any of their stats are, but Gourgeist is a pretty strong Trick Room attacker. It also gives them a fire, or not Trick Room attacker, Trick Room setter, although it can hit reasonably hard with like Poltergeist. Gives them a Fire, Water, Grass core with Rotom and Primarina, but also it can set up Trick Room so that Mega Steelix can try to sweep things, or even other Pokemon in some situations, because again, this is generally not a super fast team. They have a lot of kind of mid-speed Pokemon. They have a decent speed sandwich, but a lot of the Pokemon also are in some kind of mid-speed ballpark, so things like Corviknight, Tailwind, and Gourgeist Trick Room can benefit a lot of Pokemon. Toxicroak rounds things out pretty nicely. Of course, it's a water immunity with dry skin, which is pretty valuable with Pokemon like Mega Tyranitar and Mega Steelix. It has fighting coverage, it has poison coverage, it has dark coverage with Sucker Punch, so a lot of offensive coverage on this Pokemon. It also gives them Fake Out support, and then Qwilfish gives them Intimidate. That's the main thing that Qwilfish gives them, but like the poison typing can be useful as well. Overall, I mean, I've talked at length about what this team does, but basically it's extremely flexible. It has some powerful synergies at its core and all kinds of supporting pieces to cover for them. I felt, like I said, like I was being pulled in a lot of directions trying to prepare for this. I felt like there were a bunch of different Pokemon that I had to bring to cover certain threats, and in the end, I think that might be the strongest thing about this Raichus draft. It's very, very hard to cover for everything they have. I had a bunch of ideas in my head that kind of just lost to Toxicroak, or just lost to Rotom, or just lost to Primarina. Not all of those at once, but yeah, it was hard to make sure that I had answers to all of them. I'm not sure that I found the right balance, but I think this is the team to beat in Pool B, so it would be nice to do it. And I have assembled a team to try to do it with. This is definitely one of those weeks where I might think about making some more tweaks to the team even after I've recorded this, but this is what I've come up with. So let's talk about the Grimmsnarl set. The Grimmsnarl set is pretty unusual. Where it comes from, honestly, is my starting point in trying to prepare for this was Gengar is faster than anything that they have. It's a strong attacker, and it can trap and remove Primarina, which is a giant problem for a lot of my other Pokemon. Like Grimmsnarl doesn't want to deal with Primarina. Conkeldurr, you can see I have the Roselli Berry on it, but it doesn't especially want to deal with Primarina. I was very close to bringing Armarouge to this matchup, and it has trouble with Primarina. Gyarados kind of has trouble with Primarina. Even if I don't Mega Evolve it and it's not weak to Fairy, it still doesn't have good coverage into Primarina unless I drop one of these 4 moves for Power Whip, which I didn't really feel like I had room to do this week. So that's already a very good reason to bring Gengar, and Gengar is also just one of my strongest attackers. So one of the first things that I did was think about what my opponent's Gengar answers are. And the main ones that stood out to me were Mega Tyranitar, kind of just walls Gengar and very easily knocks it out. Houndstone with Sand Rush can outspeed and knock out Gengar with his own Ghost Stab, and Toxicroak as a Sucker Punch threat. And there could also be like a Scarf Rotom threat, but those were the main things that I saw. And so very early on in the building process, I thought, you know what about an offensive Grimmsnarl? I can Sucker Punch Houndstone. Maybe like I can Sucker Punch Rotom in some positions. I have Fairy or even fighting coverage to hit Tyranitar with. It doesn't hit Tyranitar massively hard. Grimmsnarl is only so strong. But I thought that was kind of an interesting idea to try to create some openings for Gengar. And you know what? I feel like I'm the underdog against the team to beat in my pool. Let's get a little bit creative here. I even thought about running Frisk Grimmsnarl, but I didn't do that for 2 reasons. One, it's probably nice to have priority on Bulk Up. If I get some openings to click Bulk Up, then the defense boost could be immediately beneficial against things like Tyranitar or Garchomp, like any of my opponent's Megas. And 2, I figured Frisk would tip my hand immediately that I'm not running a standard support Grimmsnarl, and it might be better to have some element of surprise there. But yeah, I don't think Grimmsnarl is here to try to be a sweeper. I think it's more like there may be some situations where I can opportunistically go for a Bulk Up, and otherwise Grimmsnarl is here to, again, Sucker Punch some of the main threats to Gengar so that Gengar can operate a little bit more comfortably. It has the Drain Punch option into Tyranitar to help keep Grimmsnarl some amount healthier if I can get going with Bulk Up and get some boost and keep Grimmsnarl on the field for a while. Spirit Break gives me something to hit Toxicroak with this Pokemon. Because Gengar, a lot of the idea here is Gengar and Grimmsnarl kind of covering each other's weaknesses, but Gengar isn't an amazing Toxicroak answer because it has to worry about the Sucker Punch, so I figured having that neutral hit into Toxicroak could be valuable, and Spirit Break is also a relatively safe button to click into Garchomp that doesn't rely on something like Sucker Punch Mind Games. All this meant I didn't have room for a Dark Stab besides Sucker Punch, but I think against Houndstone, Sucker Punch is too valuable to drop. So I think in some positions, Grimmsnarl can put in work, and that's what I'm hoping here. And if nothing else, sometimes I get a little bit samey in how I play a Draft League roster, and it's fun to bring a creative tech like this once in a while. And of course, the main threat to bulk up Grimmsnarl is Primarina, but Gengar is one of the best Primarina answers I could ask for. There could be some tough positions to deal with, like Gengar is not as comfy in front of Primarina if there's like Tailwind or Trick Room on the opponent's side of the field, but Gengar can maybe scare Primarina off so that Grimmsnarl has room to operate. I think those two Pokemon complement each other pretty well. I don't know that it's going to work, but I think it's an interesting idea to try. So Gengar absolutely needs Sludge Bomb to hit Primarina. I figured Shadow Ball was still valuable to have for some other targets, like notably Mega Steelix and Mega Garchomp. This Gengar doesn't have a way to do good damage to Tyranitar. I did think about Focus Blast or even like Giga Drain, but I didn't really think those were worth it. I also thought about Taunt for the third move slot, because it might be nice to be able to stop like a Gourgeist Trick Room. I don't have the greatest Mega Steelix Trick Room answers here. I was at one point thinking about running my own Trick Room Armarouge this week, but Armarouge has so many weaknesses into my opponent's team, I didn't quite see the vision. So I thought about Taunt, but I think my opponent will have answers to that anyway. The other thing about Taunt is it stops Corviknight from setting up. Those are two very good uses for it, but I wasn't sure they were quite enough. And also, I'm sure Gourgeist will be prepared for that kind of thing. So, and Gourgeist is a threat to just attack Gengar anyway, right? So I decided Will-O-Wisp is a bit more valuable here. Will-O-Wisp can also mess with a setup Corviknight by adding chip damage to it and weakening its damage output. If I get into a Sucker Punch Mind Game with Toxicroak, I can burn it, which immediately makes that Mind Game a lot more favorable to me. And Gengar doesn't want to be on the field against any of my opponent's Megas, but if it has to be, then burning them also is a pretty significant way to nerf them, unless it's like a special Mega Garchomp. But even then, the chip damage is nice to have. So I think Will-O-Wisp does enough in this matchup to be of some value. And again, I hope that Gengar and Grimmsnarl can complement each other nicely here. I'm running a pretty typical support Vivillon here. I'm a little bit unsure about this. I think the Rage Powder redirection is valuable enough to have. Again, so that I can get opportunities to set up with Pokemon like Grimmsnarl and Gyarados. I'm not sure about Compound Eyes, or Compound Eyes is fine. I'm not sure about Focus Sash Vivillon because my opponent has Sand, but they didn't actually bring Sand the last 2 weeks. I do think they're more likely to bring it against me, but it's possible that they don't, and either way, the main thing really is just that, one, Sand won't be on the field all the time, and two, I don't really have a better idea for redirecting Vivillon, right? Like, I could run a Choice Scarf on it. I was thinking about that before I put the Choice Scarf elsewhere. But I think the single most likely move that I click with this Vivillon is Rage Powder, and I don't especially love being locked into that. And also, I decided I wanted Hurricanes, that I have another way to hit Toxicroak, because, again, Toxicroak is actually pretty scary. If you look at this team, a lot of these Pokemon don't deal with it very well. So, I figured Hurricane was pretty valuable. And if I'm running Hurricane, I want to run Compound Eyes. So the Focus Sash won't always be useful, but it won't never be useful, probably. And I think that's probably worthwhile, but maybe I'll reevaluate a little bit over time. I have Sleep Powder. You know what Sleep Powder does. Gyarados, I figured Stabs are enough on Gyarados, even though that doesn't really give it anything to hit Toxicroak. But I do have some other things for Toxicroak built into this team. Will-O-Wisp Gengar, Hurricane Vivillon. You might have spotted the Zen Headbutt Sarina already. There's not a lot else to say about Gyarados. I just think it can be very strong. Well, I think Intimidate is valuable to my opponent's team. Intimidate and a ground immunity. Obviously, I can't Mega Evolve both Gengar and Gyarados, but I think there's a lot of room here to bring Gyarados and not Mega Evolve it because of that ground immunity and Intimidate into Garchomp and Steelix. I can also Intimidate Houndstone. I can Intimidate Tyranitar. And Gyarados turns into a Dark Resist if I... and a Ghost Resist against Houndstone if I am able to Mega Evolve it. Crunch, I think, So Waterfall is very strong into some of those Pokemon. Crunch, I think, gives it enough coverage into the rest of my opponent's team. I mean, mostly it's just I have its 2 stabs when it Mega Evolves, and it hits things reasonably hard because it's a very strong Pokemon. And yeah, I felt like I didn't have room to drop either stab option because their neutral or super effective coverage into a lot of my opponent's team is pretty valuable, even if... Like, Crunch is good into Gourgeist, for example. The only other thing that I can hit Gourgeist very well with is Bounce. I guess also like Ice Fang, but Ice Fang is weak and Bounce takes 2 turns. I don't like either of those here. So I think just for hitting Gourgeist, Crunch is pretty valuable. It's possible with all... I have a lot of super effective attacks into Gourgeist here. It's possible if they go for a Trick Room game plan, I even can knock it out before it sets the Trick Room. Might depend on its item. But that alone I thought was valuable enough to run the 2 stabs on Mega Gyarados. That means it doesn't really have a way to hit Toxicroak. But as I said, I have other answers to that, and it doesn't really have a way to hit Primarina, but I have Gengar, or maybe Sarina, to deal with that, so I just need Gyarados to be supported by its teammates in that sense. And then I have the Rage Powder with Vivillon also supporting that option. Conkeldurr. So Conkeldurr is a little bit of a relic of a Trick Room mode that I ended up not actually bringing, but obviously fighting Dark and Poison coverage is still strong into a lot of my opponent's team, notably Mega Tyranitar. Knockoff is strong into Houndstone. It is extremely weak to fighting. Knockoff is strong into Houndstone and Gourgeist. Poison Jab is strong into Primarina. The problem is getting Conkeldurr opportunities to throw off those attacks, but one, it's like reasonably tanky, right? It can probably take some hits, and with the Roselli Berry, I've covered for the most obvious weakness for the opponent to target, so I can take a Fairy type hit from Primarina and throw a Poison Jab back. And 2, Conkeldurr gives me another priority attacker besides Grimmsnarl, so even if the opponent's speed control is kind of running away with things. I mean, I have a lot of fast Pokemon, like Gengar, Scarf Serena, and +1 Dragon Dance Gyarados are all trained to be faster than anything my opponent has. But Tailwind could mess me up, Trick Room could mess me up. Having priority attacks on both Grimmsnarl and Conkeldurr I think is helpful here. But yeah, Conkeldurr is just here to hit things hard. And I think even just being able to Mach Punch Rotom, if it's like a Scarf Rotom in a tough position, is plenty of reason to keep that Pokemon around. Actually, one change I might think about before the set is maybe dropping Sleep Powder on Vivillon for my own Tailwind, but I'm not sure if that's gonna be worth it. I'm not gonna figure that out right now. I'll think about it before the set and I'll tell you if I change it. Last Pokemon in a few different ways is Sarina. It's the last one I'm talking about right now. It was the last one I added to the team, replacing an Armarouge that I just wasn't convinced would work. And this is also Sarina's debut this season. I've used everyone else already before this week, but Sarina, which was like my 5th round pick, is only showing up now. It's kind of hard to ignore Sarina, even when I thought that I might not bring her. It felt kind of silly not to, because Sarina is so strong into a bunch of my opponent's main threats, like being threatening into Tyranitar and Primarina and Garchomp is a hard thing to ignore in this matchup, even as Corviknight and Rotom pose a lot of problems for Sarina and Toxicroak. That's how it is with the Revolting Raichus. No one Pokemon covers everything. One reason I was thinking about Armarouge was to get more damage into Corviknight. Hopefully I won't regret not having that. The Will-O-Wisp Gengar hopefully can clutch things up against Corviknight if I need it to. But yeah, I felt like the balance of this team felt a little bit off without Sarina giving me some more cover for Primarina. I felt like, as I've talked through this, I've been saying repeatedly, Grimmsnarl can't really beat Primarina, Gyarados can't really beat Primarina, Conkeldurr maybe can, but it's a little iffy. And I felt like I was leaning too hard on Gengar to be the answer to Primarina when Gengar has a massive target on its back. So that was the main reason that I swapped to Sarina here. And with the Choice Scarf set, Sarina covers for a few other things. I have Queenly Majesty, so I can stop Fake Out from Toxicroak or something like a Shadow Sneak from Gourgeist. I think that gets Shadow Sneak, I'll have to check. And Sarina's offensive coverage is not necessarily amazing in this matchup, but it covers a lot of things with just those first 3 attacks. Drop Kick, strong into Primarina and Tyranitar, gets attack drops on their other physical attackers. Triple Axle is even more threatening into Garchomp and gives me a way to hit Gourgeist hard with this Pokemon. Zen Headbutt gives my team something to hit Toxicroak, which I was also in some danger of being kind of short on. And then there wasn't really any amazing 4th move here, so I just went with Knockoff to be able to remove opponents' items that could be useful into a Choice Scarf Pokemon or something like that. It's very much the fourth move here, but it could be valuable at some point. I guess the ultimate point here is I had Armarouge to cover for Corviknight, and then I decided that I didn't have enough for Primarina and Toxicroak, and Sarina being able to give me some more cover for those two Pokemon was a bit more valuable. But these are the kinds of trade-offs that you have to make in this matchup. This has been a long Team Builder segment. I've been talking quite a lot, but I'm up against what has looked to me so far like the top team in the pool. There are some trade-offs that I have to make in trying to cover for everything here. I think Sarina does a bit of a better job at complementing Gyarados, Grimmsnarl, Gengar to an extent, and Conkeldurr, and helping to enable those Pokemon to do their jobs. But the game plans here are going to be very much figured out at Team Preview, so hopefully I'll be sharp then. I'm going to think a little bit about maybe putting Tailwind on this Vivillon, but it's not the way I'm leaning right now. And yeah, the basic idea here is cover as many threats as I can. Hopefully this offensive Grimmsnarl works well and complements Gengar. And I can create some openings and break through, get the KOs I need. That's it. We're going to have to play some Pokemon, so let's cut to the battles and see how that turns out for me. Alright, here we go. No changes. Once again, Sarina's debut. The very last one on this team, unless I make any trades. And you could say the highest stakes regular season matchup. We are both undefeated, the last two undefeated teams in our pool. And one of us will not be after this. Garchomp, Tyranitar, Rotom, Toxicroak, Corviknight, Steelix. So I'm right that the sand is here. I don't see any Trick Room. I don't think Rotom can learn Trick Room. So it's Steelix without Trick Room? I mean, Steelix is still strong into stuff like Gengar and Grimmsnarl. It still makes sense. They brought all three Megas. They brought Corviknight. There's no Primarina. I thought so much about covering for Primarina, but that's the thing with this team. I also had to think a lot about covering for Rotom and Toxicroak and Corviknight. They can't bring everything, but it's hard to anticipate what they will bring. Okay, how do I beat Corviknight? I don't have Armarouge. Armarouge was going to be my Corviknight answer, and then I couldn't quite figure out the set, and I decided to bring Sarina instead. So I can burn Corviknight, or put it to sleep. Can't do both, obviously, at the same time. I don't know if I have enough for Corviknight. That's a problem. Okay, so I have to bring Gengar, I think, to game one. I'm kind of doubting Sarina now, actually. Gyarados is good, except into Rotom, and I can't intimidate Corviknight, and it's weak to Rock if I don't Mega Evolve it, because I'm Mega Evolving Gengar instead. Conkeldurr is strong into a lot of what they brought. I don't know what the right four are. Vivillon loses the Sash immediately if Sand is up, but it's one of my better offensive checks to Toxicroak. I don't hate like Gengar or Vivillon lead. With what? Conkeldurr and Gyarados or Sarina in the back. So I'm not trusting in the Grimmsnarl after all against Corviknight and Steelix. Maybe that makes sense not to trust. There's so many Grimmsnarl answers. I don't think offensive Grimmsnarl is going to get the job done. I don't know if leading Gengar makes sense either. I feel like this is a decent sort of cover the bases kind of lead. Then I bring these two. I really... Turns out this team's not easier to figure out at preview than it is at in the builder. Okay, Steelix and Rotom are the leads, so they can Mega Evolve an Earthquake. But Steelix is vulnerable to Conkeldurr. The problem is I don't have anything good to hit Rotom right now, except Sleep Powder. I might just go ahead and go for that. And let's see what a Drain Punch does to Steelix. I can't knock off its item anyway because it's the Mega Stone. Conkeldurr's min speed to cover for the opponent setting Trick Room, but it still should be faster than Steelix, unless, I don't know, the comparison to non-min speed Steelix. It doesn't have to be min speed Steelix because they don't seem to have brought Trick Room. It just protects here. Okay, I get the Sleep Powder into Rotom, and it shows a Lumberry. That's good to know about. They knock Vivillon down to the Sash. That is useful here as there's no Sand up right now. Do I just go for it again? It is 98%. It's not like I'm super likely to miss on the second one either. Toxicroak could switch in. It's a fighting resist. They're just going to take the KO on Vivillon with the sand, sacking their Tyranitar to the sleep. That makes sense. Okay, Conkeldurr does good damage to Steelix. Takes a fair bit back, though. But I get my Sarina in now. The problem is Rotom can always switch in on Sarina. There's no incentive to lock into knockoff into all these megas. So I think I lock into Trop Kick. And I just accept that maybe Rotom is coming right back in. Actually, maybe I should have doubled the Rotom slot. And Drain Punch goes into Corviknight. This team is so hard to beat. How is anyone ever going to do it this season? Drain Punch does decent damage to Corviknight, actually. Now, I thought about running Guts Conkeldurr to cover for the Rotom, but I wanted to run punching the Rotom Will-O-Wisp, but I wanted to run punching moves anyway, so I brought Iron Fist. That means I am vulnerable to the Will-O-Wisp. I'm going to switch Sarina out to Gengar. I hope Gengar gets in safely. I don't know if it will. And let's Drain Punch Rotom here. They overheat Gengar and they miss. Oh my god. Okay, but did they Brave Bird Conkeldurr for the KO? Sarina can come in one more time. Is Trop Kick the best thing to lock into? Triple Axle is also resisted by Rotom. It's neutral to everything else. I think I just lose to Corviknight, right? Knockoff or Zen Headbutt won't get rid of Rotom. I think I lock into Triple Axle into Corviknight and I Sludge Bomb Rotom. I think that's the only way. That might possibly do something. No, Triple Axle doesn't do enough. Oh, it's close, but it doesn't do enough. I do get the KO on Rotom. Corviknight sets Tailwind. So now Tyranitar can just win the game, pretty much. I can protect Gengar for one turn, but then what? Oh, well, Tyranitar's asleep. I did forget that, didn't I? What do they Brave Bird here? I think they Brave Bird Sarina. But I just don't have anything good to hit Tyranitar. So let's Shadow Ball Corviknight and Triple Axle Sarina and hope this works out somehow. I don't think I have to protect Gengar this turn because I don't think that's where the Brave Bird is going, is my point. There's no Brave Bird, they Roost. Okay. Well, the Triple Axle would be resisted by Corviknight here anyway, because of how Roost works. The Shadow Ball knocks it out. Now they get Steelix in Tailwind. Let's Triple Axle that. It's lower than Tyranitar right now. It's got so much defense, though. I might be able to win with a Gengar double protect. I got one hit with Triple Axle. Okay, Sarina's still here. I'm going for the double protect. I'm going for the Triple Axle into Steelix again. I get the double. This has been so lucky. But I lose Sarina to a Rock Slide, so with all that luck, I'm still going to lose the game. This team is such a nightmare. Yeah, and because I've been focusing down the Steelix, and because I don't have a good way to hit Tyranitar anyway, because it's not like I brought Focus Blast, they can pretty safely protect an Assurance to win the game. What do I do now? I think I have to try the Bulk Up Grimmsnarl after all. Or is it a Gyarados angle? Because Mega Gyarados could maybe work if I can get rid of the Rotom with something. I know now that it's not Scarf Rotom. So I can even outspeed it with regular Gengar. Is it Gengar, Sarina, Gyarados, and like Vivillon? Or does Grimmsnarl get in there somewhere? But Grimmsnarl's so vulnerable to Steelix. Was my best Tyranitar answer. The Corviknight might only have Brave Bird to attack. We saw Roost, Tailwind, Brave Bird. I don't know if we saw all four moves. Well, I mean, actually, I can just check. We're on Showdown. Yeah, we saw those three. Grimmsnarl or Vivillon? Vivillon gives Gyarados some room to set up. I think I'm going to do Gengar, Sarina, Gyarados, Grimmsnarl. Throw all my strongest stuff at them. It looks a little bit weird when I'm not planning to Mega Evolve the Gengar. Okay, but I can switch Gyarados in on this, except Tyranitar is scary, except I can Trop Kick Tyranitar and lower its attack, and then also Intimidate it. So like a Rock Slide shouldn't do too terribly much to Gyarados coming in, although I'm not going to enjoy seeing it. I think Gyarados is the Mega for this game. Locking into Trop Kick has some consequences. I can't knock off Rotom if they pivot that in. So maybe this is a little bit reckless. It turns out knockoff is pretty bad into a team with 3 Megas. All of which are kind of physically bulky and one of which resist Dark. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. This is a really difficult team preview, as I said already. They Mega Evolve the Tyranitar. Okay, and it's immediately at -2 attack and 1/3 HP. And we bring Gyarados in on Earth Power. That's big. Heavy Slam doesn't do too much to Sarina here. I think the smart thing here might actually be to switch Sarina out. Does that work? Or, it's tough. It's hard to find the right play here. The advantage of switching Sarina out... I don't think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to... We've seen Garchomp click a special attack already. You know what? I think I can Waterfall Tyranitar. I don't even have to Mega yet, so I can keep my options open, and I can switch to Grimmsnarl. They might go for like a Dragon attack into the Sarina slot. Okay, Corviknight comes in for Tyranitar. Garchomp just substitutes, so yeah, attacking that might have been good. Alright, I showed the leftovers on Grimmsnarl. I don't know how much that tells the opponent about what's going on. It could be, there could be a Steel attack on Corviknight, I don't know yet. For now, let's Dragon Dance. Power Gem, I didn't even know Garchomp could learn that. Dragon Dance and Spirit Break the Garchomp. That breaks the sub, which is good. Now I'm kind of vulnerable to Toxicroak. Go figure. So am I really going to be able to make use of this Dragon Dance? I can Waterfall Garchomp. Spirit Break Toxicroak. The fake out. I didn't even think about the fake out. There's so much to keep track of in this game. I just completely blanked on the fake out. I'm going to lose Gyarados to Sand now. At least I got damage into Garchomp first. Or something. I didn't Mega, so I can Mega Gengar still. So I think it's time to do that. I can Will-O-Wisp the Toxicroak slot to cover for Sucker Punch. I can just attack Garchomp and Spirit Break. No, because that doesn't cover for Sucker Punch. Let's do this. Let's Will-O-Wisp this, and let's Sucker Punch Garchomp. Okay, I switch to Corviknight. There's no Sucker Punch from the Toxicroak. What does it go for? Poison Jab and a Grimmsnarl. Okay. This is so rough. Corviknight is here. Corviknight seems to want to be in front of Grimmsnarl, which seems like bad news for me. But I can Shadow Ball it. Toxicroak is still burned. Poison Jab did enough damage actually to knock out Grimmsnarl from here. But if I get rid of Corviknight, maybe I can win with... maybe I can win with Sarina and Gengar. I think that's possible. What's my play here? Is it Sucker Punch Corviknight? I'm not confident that Corviknight's going to attack. Drain Punch Corviknight? Stays in. They Mirror Arbor the special defense drop back to B. That shouldn't matter here, but that's nuts. And, okay, it didn't attack. So Sucker Punch was not the right play. So that's okay, but the Tailwind probably seals it for them, honestly. Corviknight is pressured to Roost here, probably, so I could crit it. I can't lock into Zen Headbutt, as much as I'd love to. I think I have to lock into Triple Axle again. I think that's just what best covers everything my opponent has left. The Brave Bird goes into Serena anyway. They actually just sack the Corviknight so that they can win with Tyranitar. Yeah, makes sense. I will actually go for a Will-O-Wisp into Tyranitar first. Is there any advantage to doing this next turn? No, I think... the one thing is if I get a double protect, then I can get a Will-O-Wisp off before Tyranitar moves. Is that necessary? Do I have to go for a double protect again? Yeah, because it's going to have a Dark Attack. Okay, that's the only way. Rock Slide from Toxicroak. Yeah, Assurance. We actually already know it has that. Okay, I have to go for the double. I don't get it this time. GG's to the Revolting Raichus. I said that I felt like the underdog, but... yeah, I hope we don't meet in playoffs, honestly. This is the team to beat in Pool B, and maybe in the whole league. Although, as I'm recording this, I don't know of any losses that the Oguris have taken either, but that is rough. Well, 5-1, still a strong position to get to the playoffs. Still 3 weeks to go in the regular season. Lots can still happen. But yeah, what did I need here? I don't even know. Everything I have is countered by something on this team. Which is the mark of an excellent draft, I guess. I don't know if the Raichus will lose a set all season, but if there's a rematch, I'll try to figure things out then, and in the meantime, we just move on to the next week and keep this going, because maybe somebody else eliminates the Raichus in a championship, or maybe I find the answers later. Either way, still chasing that championship, so on to the next one. The other matches around the league this week start with the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s taking on the Great Barrier Garchomps. The Porygon 2s have brought some familiar faces, although I don't think we've seen Shiny Weavile from them before. That really stands out. It's a very attention-grabbing Shiny, which is not a criticism. I like it, but it's definitely the first thing that caught my attention on either side of this matchup. Otherwise, it's a pretty typical core from this team. Espurr probably running that Calm Mind Baton Pass set, although any given week it could try something different. Even Trick Room Espurr wouldn't be too out there against the Garchomps because they tend to play a fast mode, and the Porygon 2s can maybe take advantage of that in Trick Room with Pokemon like Sylveon and Blastoise. But my guess is the Calm Mind Baton Pass stuff until we see otherwise. With fast physical attackers in Weavile, Basculegion is not that fast, but it's very, very powerful in Hisuian Arcanine, rounding things out. On the Garchomp side, they also brought their Blastoise. Do I remember which team has Mega Blastoise? I think it's Mega Blastoise on the Porygon 2s, right? And the Garchomp's Megas are Electros and Lucario. But it is Blastoise versus Blastoise here. Maybe I should have led with that. They have the usual Garchomp synergies. Their first 3 slots are all Pokemon that are immune to ground. Garchomp is free to click Earthquake into absolutely no ground resists on the other side. Although it's not completely free because it can be intimidated by Arcanine and threatened offensively by Weavile and Sylveon, but if it gets positioned right, it can click Earthquake pretty freely next to half of its teammates, and there's no ground resist on the other side. There's Talonflame available to set Tailwind for it. It has a couple of electric types to help it deal with things like Mega Blastoise and Basculegion. The Blastoise on their side can help it deal with Arcanine. Electros available as one Mega option, complementing Garchomp pretty well. And I'm getting a phone call, so I'm going to interrupt myself right there. Hang on. Okay, I'm not really sure where I left off. I think I covered almost every Pokemon. Lucario's here too. It can Mega Evolve. Let's go. We've got Talonflame and Lucario leading against Weavile and Basculegion. I guess the one other team preview thought is that there's sort of a complicated web of interactions between the offensive threats between these two teams. So I called out earlier that Weavile is one of the best threats available into Garchomp. It's also pretty strong into Mega Electros because it's faster and hits it for neutral damage. But it's very bad into Talonflame and Lucario. Those are probably not the Pokemon I wanted to see here. So a lot of sort of frail offensive checks going both ways here. And then I guess Blastoise is a bulkier Pokemon anchoring both sides. Anyway, these are the leads. Talonflame switches out immediately to Rotom as Lucario Mega Evolves and Protects. Rotom takes the Fake Out from Weavile. That actually does a fair bit of damage. And then Lucario avoids a Wave Crash from Basculegion. Weavile goes for Rain Dance, Weavile took no damage turn 1 because Lucario protected around the fake-out pressure, I guess. I think Lucario can have Inner Focus before it Mega Evolves, right? Showdown's not going to show me right now, but it definitely doesn't have that after it Mega Evolves. But that meant that Weavile didn't take any damage at all turn 1. And, okay, Talonflame switching out to preserve its Gale Wings, I guess, as the fake-out did go into that slot. That did kind of leave Lucario free to attack, but Lucario, I guess, was not that free to attack because it was afraid of the Wave Crash, as well as the fake-out. It definitely would have been pretty devastating for it to take both. And that means Weavile is not even knocked out immediately unless Rotom is going to target it as well. I could see an Electro Web from Rotom. But Weavile gets a chance first to set the Rain Dance, so Basculegion might just be going crazy now. Actually, Rotom outspeeds Basculegion. Interesting. And knocks it out with a Thunderbolt, so forget everything I just said about Basculegion being about to go crazy, which I think was just that one statement. That tells me there are a couple possibilities here, right? The way the Basculegion is played so far, it doesn't have to have a Choice Scarf set, but if they're running it with Rain Dance, and it must not have Swift Swim. Talonflame didn't set Tailwind. Basculegion must not have Swift Swim to be outsped here. So that tells me it probably does have a Choice Scarf set, and then that tells me this probably also is Choice Scarf Rotom to be able to outspeed Basculegion anyway, when it seems like the Porygon 2s weren't expecting that. It's possible I'm wrong about either or both of those guesses. I don't think I can be wrong about Rotom, but right about Basculegion, right? Rotom can have a Scarf without Basculegion having one, but Rotom has outsped Basculegion. We at least know that much of the interaction, but I'll be keeping an eye on that. Basculegion faints here, and Weavile's at 1 HP, and suddenly this turn doesn't look as good for the Porygon 2s anymore, but they have brought in their Blastoise. That also can take advantage of the rain, although it's also kind of afraid of this Rotom. Rotom looking like a very strong check into the two powerful water types on the other side, and potentially also running Hydro Pump to hit Arcanine, so maybe I should have talked about it more at preview. Bullet Punch from Lucario will take out the Weavile, so the Focus Sash, getting it through that last turn, does not enable it to actually do anything else. The Garchomp's just running away with all the offensive momentum so far in this game. I hit the pause button just after we saw a Thunderbolt come out into Blastoise, which did not Mega Evolve, and just gets one shot, okay. And already the Porygon 2s are down to just Sylveon, which gets one shot by Meteor Mash, so Lucario gets an attack boost at the end that it will not get to use, but other than switching out the Talonflame turn 1, the Garchomps just absolutely swept this game, and it definitely looks like they're in the driver's seat at this point. I mean, they have the 1-0 lead, they haven't lost a Pokemon yet, they've only taken 19% damage across their entire team so far in Game 1, so we're going to have to see how the Porygon 2s adjust to it. I wouldn't be surprised to see something involving a Speed Boost to Spathra, because getting outsped by these two and just knocked out on all their Pokemon was, needless to say, a giant problem for them. So let's see what they come up with. We get Electros leading with Blastoise this time for the Garchomps. So it looks like the Garchomps are going with a very different game plan, not just outspeeding and taking KOs this time, maybe trying to get ahead of some adjustment. And we do see the adjustment start to come out here as it's a Spathra leading with Arcanine on the other side. No Intimidate on Arcanine. Probably Rock Head again, so it can click things like Flare Blitz and Head Smash without recoil damage. It switches out to Sylveon, so we're seeing a lot of different Pokemon on both sides already here. Electros Mega Evolves, Blastoise Fake Out goes into Sylveon. Sylveon switched in this turn anyway, and Electros gets crit by the Lumina Crash from Espathra, so Espathra might be the Pokemon to... We haven't seen Electros' move yet, but Espathra might be the Pokemon to get the Porygon 2s back into the set, as that crit plus the special defense drop is going to make Electros very uncomfortable, just as it looks like it's the Mega Pokemon that's trying to get going here, unless it's about to take a KO. No, it's about to try to set up with Coil, but it's now, like I said, very vulnerable to another Lumina Crash before even Sylveon gets to attack. Espathra does show the speed boost. Electros protects here, as I think I vaguely... This set was played some days ago, but I think I vaguely remember a discussion in the Discord in which it became clear that the coach of the Garchomps was not familiar with the move Lumina Crash. Espathra's signature move, of course, so maybe kind of caught off guard by that. Electros protecting to avoid this pressure, but the Lumina Crash goes into Blastoise this time. That, of course, sets up a Sylveon Hyper Voice that I'm sure is coming, but the Hyper Voice can miss as Blastoise lands Muddy Water into both opponents and gets the accuracy drop on both of them. Hyper Voice, if it's coming out, won't do damage to Electros this turn anyway, but let's see if it hits Blastoise. It does, for a lot of damage. We see the Life Orb on Sylveon, leftovers on Blastoise. But another Lumina Crash will knock out Electros. That was pretty clear after the damage it took from the first one. Chat getting a little bit heated here, perhaps, but another Muddy Water comes out. No accuracy drops this time. Sylveon lands a single target Hyper Voice. And so it hasn't been as... the Porygon 2s are not dominating like the Garchomps did in Game 1, but they're definitely ahead right now in Game 2, although we know that one of their Pokemon in the back is Arcanine, and Arcanine looks like it's not very good into anything that came to this game on the other side, except the Electros that's already fainted. Arcanine may be meant to cover for Talonflame, but Talonflame has not come to this game. We see Garchomp and Rotom. Arcanine probably doesn't want to face either of those. And Espathra and Sylveon are both at kind of middling HP now, maybe in range of some dangerous hits, and they're both at -1 accuracy. Espathra is at +1 speed. It can outspeed anything and start to set up some more KOs with that Lumina Crash, but only if it lands the attack. Garchomp will protect here. I don't think Rotom has that option. Lumina Crash goes into Rotom for about 40% and a drop. The Thunderbolt back knocks out Espathra, but Hyper Voice misses Rotom. Okay. There's that accuracy drop paying off for the Garchomps. Let's see if they can get back into this game. Arcanine hits the field now, but we know that it can't intimidate Garchomp. Instead, it just knocks Rotom out with Head Smash, though. The Stomping Tantrum back goes into Sylveon. The Garchomp's probably thinking Arcanine probably doesn't have a great move to threaten Garchomp anyway. Garchomp can knock it out next turn. But with Sylveon fainting here, we'll see the last Pokemon that the Porygon 2s brought to this game. We get Life Orb confirmed on Garchomp. We see Basculegion as the last Pokemon. I think it's not Choice Scarf Basculegion after all, because Arcanine just moved before it. So that means it's Basculegion and Rain without Choice Scarf or Swift Swim. I don't know what the item is, but apparently nothing to shore up its speed stat unless it happens to have Aqua Jet. Anyway, Arcanine apparently confirming that it doesn't have coverage for Garchomp, unless Arcanine has the Choice Scarf. What Pokemon was Pixelate? Was that... no, J. Cole was Rotom. Arcanine moved before Rotom. Rotom could still have a Scarf, even if Basculegion doesn't. So Arcanine might have a Scarf. That might be why it's going for Head Smash into Garchomp here, which of course is resisted. Or it might just not have coverage. Either way, it misses the attack and gets knocked out by a Stomping Tantrum. But Basculegion has now lost all of its teammates, and Last Respect knocks out Garchomp, no problem. So this was a closer game than Game 1, but the Porygon 2s have shown that with that speed boost, Lumina Crash, Espathra, they can get their own offensive pressure and overwhelm the Garchomps in the end, even as those accuracy drops were a little bit of bad luck for them. That didn't end up mattering a whole lot. But in Game 3, let's see if the Garchomps can bounce back, or the Porygon 2s can continue to make the comeback here. Lucario is back with Blastoise this time against Basculegion and Arcanine. It's a Game 3 situation, confirmed in the chat. We see Arcanine switch out to Espathra. Espathra not leading this time, but here it is on the field already. Lucario just Mega Evolves and protects. But the Wave Crash goes into Blastoise, and it does 50%. Basculegion is a crazy Pokemon, but we knew that already. Muddy Water back doesn't do very much damage to anything. No accuracy drops. No speed boost this turn because the Espathra just switched in. Speed boost doesn't activate on the switch in turn. So Espathra will be a little bit slower here, but it could protect or something to get a speed boost. Blastoise switches out to Rotom. No protect on Espathra. Meteor Mash takes away a lot of its HP, but the Basculegion just clicks another Wave Crash and knocks out Lucario immediately. It is taking a bit of recoil, but the damage it's doing back to the opponent seems well worth it. Espathra at low HP goes for the Calm Mind. It will get a speed boost here, but Blastoise is back. Espathra does protect to avoid a fake out, maybe a Scarf Rotom cheese. It's not Scarf Rotom, okay. I guess that Basculegion and Rotom both had Choice Scarves in Game 1. This protect pretty well confirms that that's not the case. I did say it wasn't a very confident guess. I just thought Basculegion would have something to shore up its speed stat. So when I saw no Swift Swim, I thought probably Choice Scarf. But now we get confirmation. Neither one has it, as Rotom's able to protect here. Basculegion also protects. Blastoise reveals Haze. So Espathra took the last turn to set up a bunch of speed, or not speed boosts, a speed boost, but a bunch of stat boosts, hoping to still do something with those. Maybe I could have seen a Baton Pass out to Sylveon next turn, but Blastoise now takes away the Calm Mind. It will get another speed boost immediately, but the Baton Pass is still not as threatening as it could have been, especially because if you leave Blastoise alone, and it's free to just Haze again, even a speed boost past Sylveon could be gotten rid of. A little bit of recovery on Blastoise, another speed boost on Espathra. Basculegion switches out to Sylveon, so there won't be a Baton Pass coming to that Pokemon. Instead, it's just unboosted, neutral, Lumina Crash into Rotom. Does about 40%. gets the special defense drop. That could be significant. Sylveon switches in on a Thunderbolt. Doesn't take too much damage. Doesn't take too much from Muddy Water either, but it does take the accuracy drop again. We'll see if that hurts it more this time than last. And if Spathra is knocked out by the Muddy Water, that means Rotom can switch out and get rid of this drop, and the Lumina Crash won't be dropping the special defense of anything else, if that's what they choose to do. It also means Basculegion comes back onto the field, just under half HP. Rotom protects here. So does Basculegion. It's Haze again from Blastoise. Wait, what did that get rid of? Oh, the drop on Rotom. It also gets rid of the accuracy drop on Sylveon, so that won't be significant. But yeah, there were no speed boosts or anything to haze away. But I guess they figured Rotom being able to stand up to attacks a little bit better was still worth it, but it does take away their chance to potentially dodge a Hyper Voice or a Moonblast or something. So there, we caught up. There's the haze. Hyper Voice comes out. Guaranteed to hit. But it doesn't do a lot to Blastoise, and we see that Life Orb chipping away at Sylveon, taking that under half. Now Rotom knocks out Basculegion with a Thunderbolt. Single target Muddy Water, crits Sylveon, still doesn't KO, does not get the drop this time. Sylveon shows its own Calm Mind, but Sylveon is at 17% HP with a Life Orb, so it won't be able to do a whole lot with that, and it's also outsped by both of these. Arcanine comes in, probably looking to put out some offensive pressure, take some pressure off of Sylveon, right? You could knock out Rotom with that Head Smash, and maybe Sylveon dodges a Muddy Water and gets to turn the game around, but instead Head Smash misses again. I believe it's 0 for 2 now in this set. Hydro Pump back into Arcanine also misses, but the Head Smash miss feels like a bigger deal here, because the Porygon 2s need a big KO like that to, I think, to turn this game around, especially with their Arcanine and low HP Sylveon facing down 2 water types. Muddy Water connects into both targets. Head Smash can't hit anything this set, but Muddy Water is hitting everything. Arcanine's already gone. Sylveon's knocked down to 7%, so it's able to knock out Rotom with a Hyper Voice, but then it will drop to its own Life Orb. And the Great Barrier Garchomps take what I believe is their first win of the season. And it did go to 3 games, but that game 1 was very dominant. And game 2, not as dominant. It would not many games are, but definitely they were ahead for a good while. With the Porygon 2s kind of scrambling to get back into this one, but the Garchomps closing it out in the end. And I mean, I talked up the Head Smash miss into Rotom, but the Muddy Water knocked out Arcanine and put Sylveon in range of its own Life Orb, so the outcome was the same, even if that Head Smash had connected. It can't feel good if you're the Porygon 2s, but in the end, it didn't really matter that much. So a fairly clean game here, and the Great Barrier Garchomps finally show their team's offensive potential, and bring this one all the way to the end. And the reason I hesitated there is it suddenly occurred to me that I don't think we ever saw a Blastoise Mega Evolve in this Blastoise versus Blastoise set. I think it just never happened. And Blastoise was the only Mega on the Porygon 2 side. Well, anyway, with that we move on. Next we have the Fluffy Friends taking on the Louisiana Hypercutters. The Fluffy Friends have brought no Pangoro, no Garbodor. I feel like we haven't seen those in a while. And once again, only half of their team is weak to Fairy. And they have a couple of serious Fairy resists as well, although there's not even a Fairy type on the other side to worry about. Off the top of my head, I don't know if the Hypercutters have a Fairy type. So you know what? The Fairy weakness is maybe not that significant here, and maybe having a bunch of Dark and Ghost types to be able to threaten Pokemon like... Well, especially the Dark types to be able to threaten Pokemon like Hisuian, Zoroark, and Sinistcha. Maybe that's kind of what the Fluffy Friends need here. The Hypercutters have brought... Their team always looks kind of Trick Room oriented to me. It doesn't have to be, right? They could have Staraptor set Tailwind. They could focus on a melodic game plan supported by Staraptor, Intimidate, and Sinistcha, Redirection, and Healing. And yeah, they're 2 fighting types in Mega Heracross and Infernape. Heracross being the only Mega they've brought this week. Could perfectly well play in Tailwind, although against a fast team like the Fluffy Friends, it seems to me to make more sense to look to set Trick Room with Sinistcha. But although this looks to me like there's probably a Trick Room mode, this is one of the less Trick Room focused looking teams at preview that I've seen from the Hypercutters so far. But Trick Room would make a lot of sense into the plethora of fast, frail attackers that the Fluffy Friends have. So if you're the Fluffy Friends, you're probably looking to overwhelm this, and honestly, Meowscarada and Greninja are probably pretty good Pokemon to overwhelm this setup. Not to underwhelm it, that's the opposite of what I mean. Greninja especially, because Meowscarada at least can be intimidated by Staraptor. But both of those can threaten Sinistcha, which is the only Trick Room setter. They can get rid of Hisuian Zoroark without too much trouble. Masquerainmen also very threatening into Melodic. And of course crits through coil boosts with a guaranteed crit on Flower Trick. So Masquerainmen honestly might be the key to this matchup if they can position it well around Staraptor, Heracross, and Infernape. And those Pokemon are then threatened by Mega Scolipede, Incineroar, and Salazzle. So there's actually a lot that I like in this matchup for the Fluffy Friends, but there definitely are ways that the Hypercutters can try to break this one open. So it'll probably come down to gameplay, as these things usually do. Let's see what we get here. The Friends lead with Incineroar and Dragapult against Staraptor and Heracross. The Intimidate goes into Incineroar, but we do see the clear body on Dragapult, stopping the Intimidate. Incineroar's Intimidate goes back the other way and weakens both of these. That is another thing that the Fluffy Friends have. They have the Intimidate into some pretty strong physical attackers on the other side, although Infernape can go special, and of course Melodic actually benefits from being intimidated, and a disguised Zoroark could go special as well. But we'll see. Heracross Mega Evolves, but immediately takes a Fake Out. Staraptor just U-turns out into Incineroar and brings in Sinistcha, which heals Heracross, and avoids a Will-O-Wisp. We see Will-O-Wisp from the Dragapult aimed at Staraptor. Instead it hits Sinistcha, which is one of the Pokemon on this side that are less bothered about being burned. If you're the Hypercutters, you're glad it's that and not Heracross. But Heracross will flinch here. Also confirmed to no Zoroark. Well, I don't think Hisuian Zoroark gets U-turn. Maybe it does. No, this had Intimidate, so it's definitely not Zoroark. Sinistcha showed Hospitality. Heracross took damage. So unless Zoroark is the last Pokemon, they didn't bring it to this game. Shadow Ball now does a ton of damage to Sinistcha, almost knocks it out right here, but it does hold on at 6%, eats a Citrus Berry. Knockoff back into Dragapult also doesn't KO, but it reveals the Dragapult's item is a Focus Sash. So that Sash is broken twice over now, because Dragapult took damage and the Sash is also not there anymore. Sinistcha throws off a Matcha Gotcha, but both these Pokemon take not a whole lot of damage from a Grass-type attack. Actually, you know what? It is enough to knock out Dragapult, so never mind. And it gives Sinistcha a bit of recovery, so not a bad Matcha Gotcha there at all. Effectively doubling up and taking out the Dragapult. And then -1 Incineroar goes straight for a Flare Blitz into Heracross and doesn't quite get the KO. So both of these teams are just trading attacks so far, hitting each other's Pokemon very, very hard, but not much actually being knocked out yet. The Dragapult so far, the only thing. Incineroar takes much recoil as well. And we saw that Incineroar was slower than Heracross and Sinistcha. Heracross, though, switching out here against Incineroar and Salazzle. Salazzle's Fake Out goes into the Sinistcha slot. I feel like that has to be a misclick, or the coach forgot that Sinistcha's a Ghost type. But like, there's not really... I don't think there's anything I'm missing there. That's probably just an error. But the other slot switched, so Fake Out into that wouldn't have done much either, which did a tiny bit of damage on Melodic. We see Rage Powder from Sinistcha. It redirects Incineroar's part... Well, it maybe redirects Incineroar's Parting Shot. My guess is the Parting Shot went into the other slot, because weakening Sinistcha's damage is not that important, especially when you seem to have brought a ton of Grass Resists. In that case, I think the Rage Powder probably actually benefited the Fluffy Friends, because I think that Parting Shot was probably going into Melodic. If Melodic had switched in on a Parting Shot and got boosted twice with Competitive, then that could have blown the game wide open for the Hypercutters, but I think they bailed themselves out with that Rage Powder. We see Masquerainmen now brought in. Masquerainmen very, very threatening against these two. Kind of afraid of the other two Pokemon in the back, but Heracross has taken a ton of damage, so there's still a lot of room for Masquerainmen to do a lot of work here. We see Quick Claw on the Salazzle. A little bit surprising to me, because Salazzle is already one of the faster Pokemon in the matchup, but it could be beneficial in like a Trick Room situation. We see another Rage Powder from Sinistcha, but Salazzle throws off a Spread Heat Wave. Sinistcha is the real target for that anyway, since Melodic resists and doesn't take very much damage. Unfortunately, the Heat Wave misses Sinistcha and only hits Melodic. But now Flower Trick goes into Melodic. Masquerainmen, of course, able to ignore the Rage Powder because it's a Grass type. We see Protean on Masquerainmen, meaning it remains a Grass type but gets rid of its Dark typing. And with that guaranteed critical hit on Flower Trick, it knocks out Melodic, a Pokemon that could have been extremely threatening. And actually, Masquerainmen was always able to come in and take out Melodic like this, so even if the Parting Shot had gone into Melodic, that would probably be okay for the Fluffy Friends. They were probably not really bailed out by the opponent's Rage Powder, as much as that would be a fun story to tell. Melodic faints. Sinistcha and Heracross in the back are both very low. Staraptor, though, is still at full HP, and Staraptor is definitely a threat, although it can be intimidated by Incineroar. but it's very threatening into Meowscarada. Staraptor can also be kind of softened up by some more Heat Waves or something, right? But we'll see what happens. First, the Intimidate comes out. I thought Meowscarada would switch out there, honestly. Instead, it goes for Sucker Punch, and it fails, which is interesting. So the Sucker Punch must have gone into Sinistra, because we see that Staraptor did go for an attack, as it just knocks out Meowscarada immediately with Brave Bird. Salazzle, though, KOs Staraptor back with a Sludge Bomb, and I think Salazzle just wins the game now, unless Sinistra went for Trick Room here. Even then, Incineroar comes in and intimidates Heracross, and I'm not sure Heracross and Sinistra can beat Salazzle. And also, it's Quick Claw Salazzle, so it might go first in Trick Room anyway. But if Sinistra clicked Trick Room here, then there's still a chance, I think, for the Hypercutters, and if it didn't, I think they just lose. Let's see. Nope, it was Strength Sap. I assume into Meowscarada, because that's the physical attacker. I mean, maybe they just wanted some recovery. Although, it's not like they got a ton from Salazzle. I believe Strength Sap recovery is proportional to the target's attack stat, right? So Salazzle's already intimidated and doesn't have a very high attack stat to begin with. So maybe they just didn't expect to knock out Meowscarada. They knew it didn't have the Sash because we already saw that on Dragapult, but maybe they just wanted what recovery they could get. Incineroar comes in now. It'll intimidate Sinistra and Heracross. Heracross protects to avoid the Fake Out, I assume, and does manage to do that. But Heat Wave will knock out the Sinistra. There was no Trick Room. Heracross is a sitting duck. Salazzle activates the Quick Claw again, although I'm pretty sure it was the fastest Pokemon here to begin with, and gets that last KO with the Sludge Bomb. And the Fluffy Friends take a 1-0 lead in the set. Let's see if they can close this one out. Let's jump straight to Game 2. But like I said at preview, Pokemon like Meowscarada and Salazzle have been very, very threatening so far. We didn't see Greninja yet, but the fast offense for the Fluffy Friends really came through in Game 1. So yeah, let's see if it happens again. We get Melodic and Sinistra leading for the Hypercutters against Scolipede and Dragapult. Okay. Scolipede Mega Evolves immediately. Dragapult just throws a Shadow Ball into Sinistra, but it's not Sinistra, it's Zoroark. I was looking for Sinistra's health bar to drop, and it did not move at all because with the normal typing, Hisuian Zoroark is immune and just throws a Shadow Ball right back into Dragapult, knocking it down its Focus Sash. 1 HP now on Dragapult. And Scolipede goes straight for Earthquake, knocks out its partner Dragapult. That Earthquake does a lot more damage to Zoroark than it would have done to Sinistra, but the only thing Scolipede is knocked out here is its 1 HP partner. That is a great use of Zoroark in this game. Just absolutely... I mean... It's tricky, right? Because Zoroark is not really any better into something like Meowscarada than the real Sinistra is. It's probably worse into Greninja, but they got the Dragapult lead that I suspect they wanted, and Zoroark was able to just dispatch that with a little bit of help from the opponent's own Scolipede. We see Icy Wind now from Melodic, slowing the Scolipede down. Icy Wind could make a real difference here because a lot of the Fluffy Friends' advantage is in how fast their Pokemon are. But Meowscarada, if they have it in the back, could come in right now and be a massive threat again. So let's see. It's actually Greninja that comes in. It protects, and it shows that it also has Protean, so that turns it into a normal type for as long as it's on the field right now. We'll see if that's advantageous for them. It is immune to Zoroark's Shadow Ball, but it resisted that to begin with, and it no longer resists water and ice attacks from Melodic. And we know that Sinistra is in the back. So Greninja has switched off its weakness to Machagotcha, but yeah, we'll see what the longer-term implications are if Greninja doesn't switch out soon anyway. Icy Wind comes out again, Zoroark just protected, Scolipede gets slowed down some more. Goes for Leech Life into Zoroark, but Zoroark protected. We see leftovers on the Melodic, we might have seen that already. Greninja now showing Extra Sensory, but because it already used its Protean transformation for this turn, that's non-stab Extra Sensory, not an especially strong attack to begin with. Melodic takes very little damage from that. And Zoroark shows Focus Blast and just knocks Greninja out. So turning into a normal type, not advantageous for Greninja in the end. If it had turned into a Psychic type with Extra Sensory, it would have done at least a little bit more damage. It would have been weak to Shadow Ball, but it would probably have gotten through this turn, taking the Focus Blast, although the Zoroark is threatening Shadow Ball the next turn, and Melodic is slowing things down with Icy Wind. I'm not sure Greninja would have gotten another chance to attack anyway. But, yeah, maybe the thing Greninja needed to do here was get rid of the Zoroark and count on its teammates to remove Melodic, although from the way the Fluffy Friends are playing, I'm not at all confident right now that Meowscarada is in the back. We're going to find out, though. They're down to 2 Pokemon. A Scald goes into Scolipede, dealing more than half of its remaining HP, but no burn, and Leech Life, though resisted, is enough to take out the Zoroark and put Scolipede back out of Scald range. But what is beating this Melodic? Salazzle is the last Pokemon for the Fluffy Friends. So there is no Meowscarada to just knock out this Melodic right away. And we'll see if they can overwhelm it with their other Pokemon. But here's the thing. The Hypercutters have other Pokemon too. Heracross comes in now. Mega Evolves. Protects. We see just Protect on Scolipede. Fake out into Melodic. I'm a little bit surprised by that combination because Scolipede is probably... I mean, Scolipede's not super safe into Heracross, right? Because Heracross could be running like Rock Blast. But Scolipede pretty comfortably resists Heracross's stabs. Heracross would need to have some specific coverage like that to be very threatening into it. And by faking out Melodic, you get a free turn to get some damage on it, but they don't take advantage of that. The Scolipede doesn't... There's no follow-up from the Scolipede to actually put Melodic in a worse position, so... The Fluffy Friends don't really accomplish a whole lot this turn. We see now a Heat Wave, which does a lot of damage to Heracross, but not much to Melodic. Salazzle is a great offensive threat into both of the other two Pokemon that the Hypercutters have, but the Melodic is just such a giant problem for it. And we know it doesn't have the Focus Sash. Let's see what the Scald does. Doesn't quite KO, it does 98%. Heracross, though, does show Rock Blast into Scolipede. It does knock that Pokemon out, and Salazzle is not pulling this game back. It can knock out Heracross with this Heat Wave, but that comes at the cost of doing just 11% to Melodic and getting knocked out by Scald. So it really feels like Meowscarada has made the difference through the first two games of this set. With Meowscarada, the Fluffy Friends were able to overwhelm the Hypercutters. Without Meowscarada, they just never managed to break through Melodic and never even really put up much of a threat to do so. They have two poison types. We could have seen a game plan where they poisoned the Melodic with like genuinely toxic or something, but it doesn't look like that's in the cards either. So I think we're probably going to see the Meowscarada in Game 3, and I think a lot of this set might come down to how that Pokemon is positioned and what chances it gets to do its job. It's not necessarily easy because it is very bad into half of this Hypercutters lineup, but I think it's too good into the other half to ignore. Infernape leads with Staraptor, two things Meowscarada doesn't want to see, against Incineroar and Dragapult, so Meowscarada is not seeing them so far. We get Intimidates both ways. The only thing unaffected, once again, is the Dragapult. Incineroar, of course, is threatening Fake Out, but Infernape is faster and also could have Fake Out. And sure enough, it fakes out Incineroar first, and shows a Life Orb, so it actually does almost as much damage to itself as it did to Incineroar. But now Staraptor is free to do something if it wants, and that thing is set Tailwind. Shadow Ball does a lot of damage to Infernape, but where Dragapult is the fastest Pokemon in this position normally, the Hypercutters have now grabbed the speed advantage. We'll see what they do with it. Staraptor switches out to Melodic, which is interesting. Dragapult protects, avoiding a knockoff from Infernape. We see Drain Punch from Incineroar into the Staraptor slot, hitting Melodic for, again, not very much damage. It does not look like the Friends have anything really to deal with this Melodic except the Meowscarada, which is not on the field right now and is going to have a hard time getting comfortable when the other side has brought both Staraptor and Infernape. So good adjustments here from the Hypercutters. And maybe they brought Infernape instead of Heracross because that better enables a Tailwind mode, both because of that Fake Out and because it's a fast Pokemon that can take somewhat better advantage. Infernape now lands that knockoff into Dragapult, gets rid of its Focus Sash, but it's at low HP. It drops to a Shadow Ball here. Incineroar takes a little bit more than half from a Scald. It clicks Parting Shot into Melodic. Uh-oh. Well, there's that competitive boost. And there's another one. There's a special attack drop mixed in there as well, so Melodic only goes to +3, but that's +3 Melodic and Tailwind. That's pretty significant, and we see that Meowscarada is here, but this might not have been the best time for it to come in, especially as we know that the Melodic does have ice coverage as well. And here's the Mega Heracross, the Hypercutters. I'm not going to say they definitely read the matchup the same way that I did. I think very often when I do this commentary, the coaches have insights that I don't have because they've actually thought these matchups through and whatnot. But it kind of feels right now like the Hypercutters might be on the same page as me because I said that the Friends hadn't shown any way to break through Melodic except Meowscarada, but Meowscarada had trouble getting comfortable against this second half of the team. And the Hypercutters brought to Game 3 Melodic and all three of the things that Meowscarada is afraid of. And that's after the really cool Zoroark play in Game 2, so good adjustments all around. What is Meowscarada going to do? Probably not a whole lot while the Tailwind is still up, and the other thing is if Meowscarada protects to deal with this Tailwind, then it turns into a normal type and it loses Stab on Flower Trick. Heracross Mega Evolves. We see Protect from Dragapult, but not from Meowscarada. It takes 3/4 from that +3 Icy Wind. 3/4 of its HP just gone. And a speed drop. And then it's knocked out by Pin Missile, and I don't know that the Fluffy Friends can win this one now. Tailwind is over. Maybe the Scolipede has been hiding Toxic all this time. Okay, Draco Meteor into Melodic from Dragapult does some damage. That is not nothing, but it's less than half, and Dragapult has lowered its special attack. And then Scolipede knocks its partner out with Earthquake, so there's not another Draco Meteor coming, and Scolipede takes actually less than half from +3 Icy Wind, single target too, so good bulk on that Scolipede, but Heracross is able to double into it with a Rock Blast, and suddenly Incineroar is the only thing left. It'll come in and boost Melodic again. +5. Scald takes out Incineroar. And yeah, the Hypercutters got overwhelmed in Game 1. And I do think Meowscarada was the key Pokemon in this matchup. Well, but the reason is Melodic was the key Pokemon on the other side. The Hypercutters got overwhelmed in Game 1. They pulled some great Zoroark trickery in Game 2. And then in Game 3, having seen that the friends were short on Melodic answers, they were able to just load up on all of their Meowscarada counters, and they had some very good ones. And Meowscarada just didn't really get a chance to do anything. So the Hypercutters falling behind early, but in the end taking the win. Next, the Snowpoint Snorunts take on the Hisuian Houndstones. Both these teams have very fast Tailwind setters, although the Snorunts have the advantage in terms of Tailwind because of the Prankster on Whimsicott, but of course Aerodactyl is an offensive threat into Whimsicott, so it can't deny Tailwind, but it can remove Whimsicott and get a speed advantage later into the game. And it does look like both sides are going to be looking for that kind of Tailwind gameplay, although we do see the Hatterene here for the Houndstones, so they have that one Pokemon Trick Room mode option if they want it. And actually, I mean, things like Scovillain and Toxapex are also going to be underspeeding probably anything that the Snorunts have brought. So Trick Room is not inconceivable to see here. But otherwise, the Houndstones are going to rely on their Mega Metagross and their Tyranitar as a powerful offensive core, along with Aerodactyl. If they can get the speed advantage in Tailwind, then Tyranitar can start rock sliding things, which could be very threatening as the Snorunts have not brought a rock resist. They do potentially have Intimidate on Tauros, and I mean, they have a lot of offensive threats into Tyranitar, right? Like Gardevoir, Tauros, and Samurott can all hit that Pokemon very hard, but my point is if Tyranitar gets the speed advantage, it can be very powerful here. The Tauros looks very threatening, actually, but I feel like a lot comes down to the speed control, because Tauros and Mega Metagross are mutual offensive threats into each other. The other tricky thing, though, is the Houndstones have some supports that they can use to make things a bit more complicated, like Scovillain can redirect a Tauros attack or Samurott attack. Samurott also very offensively threatening into Mega Metagross. Toxapex can kind of wall those Pokemon to an extent and maybe poison them and make their lives difficult. But then Toxapex might be vulnerable to Gardevoir depending on the positioning. So I feel like the Snorunts have good answers to the main offensive threats to the other side, but they'll have to be careful about the support pieces, and we'll see how both sides deal with the nuances of this matchup. Aerodactyl leads with Metagross for the Houndstones against Vanillux and Rotom fan form. I didn't even really talk about Vanillux and Rotom. They're both weak to rock, and Vanillux is also weak to steel, but, well, I don't know. Maybe they can be disruptive here anyway. We'll see what they can do in a moment. Notably, Vanillux does get Snow Warning, so it can disrupt Tyranitar's weather control if it wants. We do see the Snow Warning here. They just lead with it, so Tyranitar could switch in pretty safely in this position, other than a possible Rotom Will-O-Wisp, and get the sand if it wants to. First, we see Vanillux switch out to Samurott. There is no switch on the other side. Rock Slide from Aerodactyl immediately crits Samurott and does half or more to both Pokemon on the Snorunt's side. And Metagross follows up with an Iron Head that's meant to target Vanillux, but Samurott does resist. It does get through this turn, but at very low HP, considering it hasn't done anything yet. We see Rotom just throw off an Electro Web. So that'll give them some speed control, but Rotom is slower than both of these Pokemon to begin with. I don't know if it's going to be faster than Aerodactyl even after the speed drop, but yeah, it definitely took a risk just to get that speed control for now. And of course, Metagross, I didn't even think about that, has not Mega Evolved, so it still has Clear Body, so it doesn't take the speed drop at all. Now it Mega Evolves. But Samurott moves first, possibly showing a Choice Scarf on that Pokemon. Night Slash does 70% to Metagross, which after the Electro Web damage knocks it very, very low. Another Iron Head into Samurott, though. No need to gamble on a coverage move that can miss. If they even have a coverage move, they can keep that information hidden. the resisted stab move is enough to get the knockout here, thanks to that Rock Slide crit earlier. Rotom, though, does outspeed Aerodactyl now, takes it out with a Thunderbolt, so we won't see Tailwind on the Houndstone side. We will see Scovillain come in. Vanillux is back, though. If Vanillux has, like, a... Okay, not everything can have a Choice Scarf. I need to relax with the Choice Scarf hype here. I think Samurott probably has the Choice Scarf, which means I think Vanillux probably doesn't have one. So Vanillux is vulnerable to an Iron Head. Maybe here you protect Vanillux. Electroweb Metagross while it's probably trying to target Vanillux, and then you can hit both of these Pokemon hard with a Blizzard on the next turn. But then that still doesn't work if Metagross has Bullet Punch. Or maybe it works, but Vanillux takes a lot of damage in the process, so let's see. Vanillux does protect. We see Rage Powder from Scovillain, Iron Head into Vanillux, but it protects. The Electroweb actually is enough to knock out Metagross, and it'll lower Scovillain's speed. But yeah, the Snorunts did make the play that I was thinking there. Scovillain takes another speed drop from Moody. So Vanillux could be comfy to click Blizzard, except the last Pokemon for the Houndstones does turn out to be that Tyranitar. So that'll come in and set up the Sandstorm, getting rid of the snow that Vanillux wants. I thought Vanillux might switch out here. I don't know what's in the back, so I don't know whether that's a good choice or not, but it stays in. Rotom lands a big Air Slash into Scovillain, does 75%, but Scovillain still is here, and it gets the Citrus Berry, stick around longer. Vanillux just goes for the Blizzard anyway, in the sand, misses Scovillain, chips Tyranitar a little bit. Scovillain is probably the target it would rather have hit there, although a lot depends on their last Pokemon. I don't know what that is. Rock Slide back knocks out Rotom and knocks Vanillux down to just over 20%, so Vanillux will not get another chance to set up its Snow Warning in this game. And we will finally see that last Pokemon. Vanillux at 15 after sand damage. Last Pokemon is Gardevoir. So Tauros could have been very, very powerful here, right? Tauros could have probably cleaned this game up pretty comfortably. It might depend on the Tyranitar's coverage, but even if you get Rage Powder, Tauros can probably take a hit from Tyranitar and then take it out next turn. I guess it could also depend on like a Chople Berry on Tyranitar. But Gardevoir, I think, is in a much tougher position because Tyranitar has that boosted special defense in the sand. And how well is Gardevoir going to take a hit if it has to knock out Scovillain first? It is Mega Gardevoir. I did kind of forget that detail, but... Oh, that means it gets the spread Hyper Voice, so it can hit Tyranitar right away, but does it hit hard enough? And will they be punished for that Blizzard miss earlier? Scovillain protects here. No Rage Powder. Probably not useful, as there's most likely just spread damage coming from the other side. Hyper Voice does a lot to Tyranitar, but it doesn't get KO. Blizzard, not Blizzard, Freeze Dry. It's not just spread damage. They didn't just click the Blizzard and Sand this time. They went for Freeze Dry. Scovillain could have redirected that. It doesn't, but Tyranitar still takes the hit. Does Tyranitar do enough damage back? I'm not sure, because it's not taking another hit from Mega Gardevoir, and Scovillain is pretty low as well. Rock Slide back, knocks out the Vanillux and crits the Gardevoir, but Gardevoir holds on at 18%. That critical hit almost, but not quite enough to secure this one for the Houndstones. Gardevoir's the only Pokemon left for the Snorunts, but it's got a pretty free Hyper Voice here if it wants it. It goes for that. It does knock out Scovillain with a crit. I would not bet that mattered. And unless the percentages are lying to me, here's the thing. Gardevoir is in range of one more turn of sand damage, so I think this game most likely just comes down to whether Tyranitar gets a double protect. Tyranitar just protected. It has a 1 in 3 chance of getting another one successfully right now. And that's the only way it gets through this next turn. And if it gets through this next turn, Gardevoir probably faints to the Sandstorm. So, assuming Tyranitar goes for the double protect, which I think is the only thing it can do here to have a chance. 2 times out of 3, the Snorunts win this game. 1 time out of 3, the Houndstones win. Let's see. It doesn't get the double protect. Math prevails as the Snorunts close this one out, but by a razor-thin margin in the end. I was worried for them when the Gardevoir hit the field instead of the Tauros, but I guess I forgot just how powerful Mega Gardevoir is. Or that it is Mega Gardevoir on their team. Anyway, Game 2. Let's go. Metagross leading with Scovillain this time against Whimsicott and Vanillux. So, it's the Snorunts that are threatening Tailwind this time, although we never saw a Tailwind on either side in Game 1. Scovillain switches out to Tyranitar, the Sand getting rid of the snow right away here. Metagross Mega Evolves. We do see the Tailwind, but Vanillux, it would have been pretty cool if we'd seen another Blizzard in Sand. Of course, this one not intentional, but who knows? Maybe it would have worked out for them. But instead, Vanillux went for Aurora Veil. So with the Sand set up, that move just fails. Kind of clever by the Houndstones. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the Snorunts probably thought that they could get away with the Aurora Veil because the Tyranitar didn't switch in early in Game 2, and they just kept it in the back until much later in the game. So the Houndstones changing up the way they played this shut down the idea that the Snorunts were going for there. Iron Head into Vanillux just knocks it out. So there'll be no Aurora Veil in this game at all. Hisuian Samurott comes in now. That'll scare Metagross off as we see Hatterene come in. Interesting. Wonder what that'll do. Whimsicott protects. Aqua Cutter into Tyranitar. Samurott not at all fooled by the switch. Not targeting Metagross. Hits Tyranitar very hard with that Aqua Cutter, but doesn't quite get the KO. And Brick Break back into Samurott does 77%. Not quite knocking that out either, but both Pokemon taking a lot of damage, and Samurott with a clear speed advantage. But who knows how Hatterene changes things, right? Tyranitar protects. The Aqua Cutter goes into Hatterene. It crits, but Hatterene holds on at 4%. What did Hatterene go for here? We don't get to find out as it drops to a Whimsicott Moonblast. The double up shutting down any possible trickery from like a Trick Room Hatterene or even just a Dazzling Gleam to knock out Samurott and do a bunch to Whimsicott. Hatterene gets no chance to do any of that kind of stuff. Scovillain's here. That can Rage Powder, so it can keep Tyranitar around a little bit longer, even as Tyranitar's at low HP. If Scovillain were to redirect another Aqua Cutter and Moonblast, then Tyranitar would get another chance to attack. Instead, we see Samurott switch out to Gardevoir. Scovillain does go for Rage Powder. Whimsicott, ignoring the Rage Powder because of its Dark typing, because of its Grass typing, excuse me. Getting ahead of myself there. Goes for the Encore into Tyranitar. What did Tyranitar use? Protect. But Tyranitar as a Dark type, immune to Prankster boosted moves, so the Encore fails. So yeah, we got two different type immunity interactions there. Whimsicott ignoring a Rage Powder and Tyranitar ignoring the Prankster. And throwing a Rock Slide back that does a bunch of damage. Both Pokemon. Tailwind ends, but I mean, I think that Snorunt should still have the speed advantage, except as I was saying that, I glanced at the Scovillain and saw that Moody just boosted its speed. See, Gardevoir Mega Evolve. Of course, Whimsicott can set Tailwind again if it wants to. Tyranitar protects. The Tailwind does go right back up. The Hyper Voice comes out. It does only 35% to Scovillain. It is, of course, resisted by that Fire type. And Scovillain chooses to take out Whimsicott with an Overheat. So Gardevoir survives another turn. That's dangerous to Tyranitar, but it's not so dangerous to Scovillain or to the Metagross in the back. Samurott is here, but it's at 11%. These are the only two Pokemon left. They do have 3 more turns with Tailwind. The Samurott can maybe win this. I'm trying to think. Like, if there's a Rage Powder play, then Samurott's attack is redirected into Scovillain, but Gardevoir is still free to knock out Tyranitar. And if Scovillain takes a bunch of damage from an Aqua Cutter or a Dark-type attack, then maybe it drops to the Hyper Voice as well. It is at boosted special defense, though. But basically okay, so the Snorunts need to not lose to Metagross in the back, which basically means they need Samurott, and they also need Metagross to not have Bullet Punch because Samurott's at low HP. I don't know. There are a lot of variables here. Let's see. Tyranitar actually just switches out to Metagross. That's another trick the Houndstones can do because that is a Pokemon that can come in safely on the Hyper Voice, preventing the Snorunts from taking a KO this turn. Potentially. Scovillain protects. There's no Rage Powder. The Night Slash from Samurott goes into that slot, but no damage. Hyper Voice won't do a ton to Metagross, so the Houndstone's conserving resources pretty effectively here. Could really make the difference in the game. Now we see the Rage Powder. The Night Slash goes into Scovillain, knocks it out with a crit. It was at lowered defense because of Moody anyway. Gardevoir shows Mystical Fire. It does 61% to Metagross, but that is not enough damage to knock that Pokemon out. Nor does Metagross care about the special attack drop. It knocks out Gardevoir with an Iron Head, and now there's Samurott at 11%, probably choice locked into Night Slash against similar HP Metagross and Tyranitar. The Snorunts, if you're the Snorunts, it probably has to feel like you almost have this. Samurott will probably take a KO this next turn. Maybe not if the Houndstones protect their Pokemon, but The problem is Camerupt just doesn't have a way to beat both of these. I think what you do is you knock out the Metagross and hope that you dodge Tyranitar's attack? No, Tyranitar already showed Brick Break. These both have accurate attacks. I don't think there's a way. I don't think the Snorunts can win, but let's see. Metagross actually protects here. So does Tyranitar. Okay, so they do make the protect play. That'll put Camerupt in range of sand damage next turn anyway. And it also gets rid of the Tailwind, but Camerupt will outspeed anyway with the Choice Scarf that I think it has. Chooses to knock out Metagross, but that means it drops the Tyranitar's Brick Break. So as we go to game 3, once again, I think there's kind of been a key Pokemon, and I think it's been the Mega Gardevoir. That was able to clean up in the late game in game 1, but just didn't have quite enough damage in game 2 at the point where it came into the game. Grouping it with more offensive threats like Rotom and Camerupt could be interesting as opposed to Whimsicott, but I don't know. I don't know the best approach for either side. Let's see if the coaches figured it out. Hatterene leading with Scovillain. Interesting. Are we going to see Trick Room against Whimsicott and Tauros? Tauros, a Pokemon that looked pretty strong to me in this matchup, finally hitting the field, although this is probably not a great position for it because Scovillain can redirect its attack and then Hatterene can probably just knock it out, but let's see. Tauros switches out to Camerupt. Camerupt, though, also kind of vulnerable against Hatterene, but it'll come in freely if Hatterene went for a Psychic-type attack this turn. Whimsicott Moonblast Hatterene does some decent damage. Gets hit back by an Overheat from Scovillain, knocked down to 1 HP thanks to its Focus Sash. And Hatterene does go for Psychic, so the Camerupt switch does work out for the Snorunts. The question is what Camerupt can do from here. Special defense boost on the Scovillain. We'll see if that matters later. Regular, not yet Mega Gardevoir switches in, so maybe it will. Hatterene not going for another attack here, just switches out to Tyranitar. Which makes me curious about what the Scovillain will do. Scovillain does just go for Rage Powder. Redirects a Night Slash. Takes less than half from that, although it'll be more than half after sand damage, although I believe we saw a Citrus Berry on the Scovillain, so then it'll be less than half again in total damage taken. Sure enough, it does get chipped down by the sand and eat its berry. Camerupt now switching out to Tauros, intimidating the Tyranitar. Gardevoir Mega Evolves. The Snorunt's really stepping on the gas offensively here. The Hyper Voice comes out. It does a little bit more than half to both of these Pokemon. Doesn't knock anything out, but does a lot of damage. Rock Slide back does not as much damage. And Will-O-Wisp into Gardevoir misses. Gardevoir doesn't care about being burned as far as its offense goes, but of course the burn damage and the sand damage could have added up. I don't know if there's going to make a massive difference here when Gardevoir is doing so much damage to everything with Hyper Voice. Maybe everything. We'll see if there's a Toxapex or a Metagross in the back, although of course Gardevoir could be running its Psychic Stab to threaten Toxapex, if that's what it is. Like, Gardevoir is threatening to sweep, is what I'm saying. I think burn damage might be too little too late, even with the sand, but it could have made a difference, potentially. Scovillain still stacking up special defense boost, but I don't think it's going to matter at this point. Tyranitar switches out to Hatterene. We see Scovillain protect, maybe trying to get something more useful for Moody, like a speed boost. Hatterene takes a lot of damage from the Hyper Voice, but once again, not knocked out. Gardevoir doing about as much damage as it can without actually any KOs so far. But Tauros doubles into that slot with the Flare Blitz and knocks Hatterene out. And it does look like the Houndstones are getting overwhelmed by Gardevoir this time, although Scovillain has now hit, I think, +6 special defense. It's just not that useful when you're in range of sand damage anyway. Metagross, though, is the last Pokemon for the Houndstones, so if they can claw their way back into this one, how do they do it? Probably like Rage Powder, Mega Evolve, Psychic Fangs, Tauros, and trust that your Metagross can beat Gardevoir after this turn. But you can't leave Tauros alone to click Flare Blitz, right? I don't know. Let's see. Tauros protects, so my play would not work. Gardevoir protects anyway. Rage Powder, non-Mega Iron Head is all we see from the other side. But both of these Pokemon just protected, so all options are back on the table for the Houndstones now. Gardevoir switches out to Whimsicott, which will drop to Sand. Actually, looks like Sand ends this turn, so it won't. The Flare Blitz goes into... They just Flare Blitz straight into Scovillain, not even trying to target Metagross. I think they must have anticipated a Rage Powder, but there... Oh, there was a Rage Powder, never mind. It's hard to see, okay? Scovillain has all these stat changes. Never mind. Apologies to the Snowpoint Snorunts. I was going to be confused by that play, but there actually was a Rage Powder, so that's... The Flare Blitz was probably supposed to go into Metagross. Metagross still not Mega Evolving, by the way. Still goes for the Iron Head into Whimsicott. I don't know if this thing has Psychic Fangs, but you'd think it would want to get rid of Tauros, because otherwise Tauros... Like, okay, Metagross was probably hoping to hit Gardevoir. But how do you not lose to Tauros now? Gardevoir comes back in. I think it's just Flare Blitz and Hyper Voice. GG. Unless Metagross has been hiding Bullet Punch all this time. Either way, it's not Flare Blitz and Hyper Voice, because the Tauros actually switches out to Samurott, and Gardevoir protects. Maybe they're scouting for the Bullet Punch. Metagross does finally show Psychic Fangs here. What moves have we seen from Metagross? Iron Head, Psychic Fangs. I think we've seen Protect. Do we know all of its moves? I don't think we do, but I could be mistaken. Did it have some kind of coverage for something? Well, I don't think we know. So, okay. Yeah, the Snorunt's playing safer than I suggested a moment ago. Probably scouting for that Bullet Punch that we still don't see so far. Night Slash does a lot to Metagross. Doesn't quite KO, but now Hyper Voice takes both KOs. It's either the Bullet Punch scouting, I think, or the Snorunts just wanted to pad Gardevoir's stats and not let Tauros have a KO here. But even though I was kind of a Whimsicott doubter after Game 2, their core really came through here and just swept the Houndstones aside. The Houndstones just couldn't handle Mega Gardevoir, Hisuian Samurott, and Blaze Breed Tauros in 2 out of 3 games. And their Pokemon got overwhelmed by those powerful attackers, especially Gardevoir, which put in a lot of work this week for sure. And for the last set to cover in Pool B, we are going back to one that was played in Pokemon Champions. I feel like it's been a couple weeks since we saw one of these. And I did the YouTube version of this commentary, but that's kind of fun. We get better visuals for a little bit. And it's the Zurbe Chatots taking on the Calgary Camerupt. And once again, the Chatots have done that thing that I find very helpful and maybe should copy someday, where they have both rosters listed on both sides there, so we can look at what Pokemon they didn't bring as well as what they did on both sides. The Chatots seem like they've committed more to the rain mode for their team lately, and sure enough, those top 2 Pokemon slots are Politoed and potential Mega Swampert. Well, I say potential because it has to actually Mega Evolve, but there's no reason here that it wouldn't. They didn't bring any other Mega. But you never know sometimes. They also have Noivern, which is, of course, an Earthquake immunity that can set Tailwind for Swampert, multiple speed control options, as well as covering Swampert's weaknesses to an extent by just like dropping a really strong Draco Meteor into Rotom, or a super effective strong Draco Meteor into Dragonite. They have Life Orb Fortress. That's a new one to me. I don't think we've seen that from the Chatots before, although I wouldn't put it past them. We've seen Fortress as a setup attacker from this team, but the Life Orb set, I'm gonna make a guess here. I'm gonna call my shot, and Coach Mario Man can tell me if I'm right. I think the Life Orb is here for some kind of Steel type attack calc into Mega Floette. I think that's part of their Mega Floette answer, to do a surprising amount of damage to it with their Steel type Fortress, which is not usually thought of as a Pokemon that does a lot of damage. Let me know in the comments if I'm right. And then there's Mousehold with a wide lens, so probably running Population Bomb, which is very strong into everything here except Ceruledge. So a lot of offensive threats from the Chatots with what looks like it's probably a Swampert-centered game plan, but some interesting pieces to cover for Swampert's weaknesses for sure. Clear threats into both Megas on the other side, and I've avoided mentioning it until now, but they have Bright Powder Ditto, so if the Calgary Camerupt go for their Minimize Overquill setup again, the Chatots can turn that around on them, and we might get some long Overquill versus Overquill endgame that goes on until Timer. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. This is, as always, a cold viewing, but you know what? If that's what happens, I'll enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. It would be content for sure. And that possibility is on the table here. On the Camerupt side, we do see both of their Megas. We do see the Overquill. And we see the Liepard, which can give it Prankster support, so a minimize, maybe even stockpile Overquill game plan is a possibility, and Ditto transforming into Overquill is a possibility. But they could also try to set up stuff like Floette and Dragonite, but you never know what the Calgary Camerupt are going to do. And especially I'm interested in how they deal with the Mega Swampert, so let's find out. I guess I can skip a lot of this team preview stuff like I've done in the past. We do get to see, because we see one POV here, that the Chatots are bringing Politoed and Swampert to lead game 1 with Ditto and Mousehold in the back. I'm rooting now for the Overquill versus Overquill. I think some viewers would hate that, but it's just too funny to not happen, I hope. And the Camerupt. Looks like they might be taking their full time to lock in their picks. Oh, okay. Almost their full time. But let's see. Game 1. Who knows what we'll get. Liepard and Rotom leading against Froppy and Mudman. Politoed and Swampert. We knew that already. So Rotom immediately a threat into these two rain Pokemon. What is the answer to Rotom? Well, it looks like it's partly Icy Wind Politoed. We just saw that locked in. And they have Ice Punch on the Swampert as well. And Mousehold, of course, can always Population Bomb Rotom, but it has to get onto the field first. And it doesn't really have a super safe way to do that right now. Swampert will Mega Evolve. And I didn't see what it went for. I think it might have been Protect. It was Protect. I think Liepard gets Prankster Encore, right? So that could be risky, but we'll see. Liepard goes for Sunny Day. That, you know, that is a possibility that I thought of at preview, and I didn't bother to say it out loud. But yeah, getting rid of the rain immediately. We see Swampert with that speed disadvantage, but with the Protect avoiding a Leaf Storm. Icy Wind will come out and slow the Rotom down, but the Rotom could still have the speed advantage depending on its set. So Swampert might still be in danger here. Oh, it's Haze Politoed as well. Haze and Perish Song, so multiple ways to get rid of Overquill. Either one of those options is probably better than the Ditto one, but the Ditto one is funny, and I hope we see it. But for now, it looks like Politoed. I think Politoed just went for another Icy Wind. It looks like Swampert is thinking of switching out. Turning Ditto into Liepard would be interesting. It makes that slot immune to Prankster, and it also copies Liepard's set, which means you get to scout what moves Liepard has. That is what they're going for here. We've seen Sunny Day, but who knows what his other moves are. But we're about to find out, I think. Liepard does go for the Prankster boosted Encore, but yeah, it doesn't work on the Ditto for two reasons. Ditto's now a Dark type, and it also hasn't used a move. Leaf Storm goes into that slot, though. It does a lot of damage to Ditto, more than half, but another Icy Wind from Politoed is slowing these Pokemon down, and it's also doing a quarter HP to Rotom each turn. And I'm very curious about the Liepard set. I'm glad we get to see what it is in a moment. First, Politoed has to decide on its action. It looks like it's going to be another Icy Wind. Sunny Day, Charm, Encore, Foul Play. Okay, so Charm is another way to mess with Swampert. That means the Swampert game plan. I mean, it makes Liepard not exactly a hard, maybe not a hard counter to the Swampert game plan, but pretty close. It looks like the Chatots are going to have to find more win cons than just Swampert potentially to get through this, unless they have a way to get rid of the Liepard so that Swampert can operate safely. But it gets its speed control taken away, and it gets its attack stat taken away. Not great. We see the Rotom switch out to Overquill here. Uh-oh, here we go. Intimidate comes out from the Overquill. Icy Wind again. It's not going to do as much to Overquill as it did to Rotom. And Foul Play to that slot is resisted, so it doesn't do a whole lot either. Although Overquill takes some decent chip coming in. That damage could matter. Liepard goes for Foul Play into Politoed. We see leftovers on Overquill. Uh-oh. Is Ditto going to switch out so that it preserves the option to copy Overquill later? Or are we just going to see a Perish Song from Politoed or something? Oh, Muddy Water. Okay. Makes sense. Although it is weakened by the sun. Looks like Ditto's staying in. Just going for another Foul Play into the Overquill slot. I guess trying to chip that Pokemon down, keep it manageable. Overquill actually just protects here. Fishing for some leftovers recovery, I guess. You see the Muddy Water come out. Again, it's weakened by Spread Multiplier. It's also weakened by the sun. It could get an accuracy drop, but yeah, that's not doing a lot of damage to Liepard. Foul Play goes into the Protect. And Liepard's Foul Play goes into the Ditto. Ditto might have taken too much damage now to really take advantage of transforming into Overquill, as much as I'm rooting for that outcome. But it doesn't matter if Ditto dodges everything. So yeah, I still wonder whether we'll see Ditto switch out here. I mean, I've made it obvious what I hope to see, but both coaches should be hoping to play their best Pokemon and not just entertain me. We do see another Foul Play locked in there. So both sides kind of taking their time, slowly wearing each other down here, which seems like a situation that could be beneficial to this minimized Overquill, which is starting to boost up now. But let's see, the Muddy Water comes out, it connects into both targets, but yeah, still not doing a lot of damage in the sun, even as it crits Liepard. The Foul Play does connect. The Overquill knocked down below half by that. Not dodging anything so far. Foul Play into Ditto won't quite knock that Pokemon out. My Dream isn't quite dead yet, but pretty close. But the sun ends here. But Liepard can click Sunny Day again. So the Camerupt are still able to keep weakening that Muddy Water if that's what they want to do. Of course, Politoed still has Haze and Perish Song available, so as much as this looks pretty good for the setup Overquill, things can be flipped around on it quickly, especially as it hasn't been dodging anything so far. No Sunny Day, the Liepard actually switches out here to Rotom. Okay. Maybe trying to knock out the Politoed before Politoed can do something like Haze or Perish Song or land more Muddy Waters. It's possible that Politoed doesn't get to show its Overquill countermeasures in this game. Muddy Water connects into Rotom. Does it get the accuracy drop? It crits. Could not tell from the damage. We see Citrus Berry on Rotom, but we don't see an accuracy drop. Overquill avoids the Foul Play with a Protect. Alright. What's Rotom going to do now? Is it just going to try to knock out Politoed? And what's Politoed going to do about that? And Politoed's at full HP. Can Rotom just knock it out? Rotom is surprisingly strong. Politoed's still just going for Icy Wind, or switching back to Icy Wind here. Rotom, though, probably takes 2 more of those thanks to that Citrus Berry recovery. And Liepard's still going for Foul Play into Overquill, still just trying to get what damage it can on that Pokemon, I guess. It's not a Leaf Storm or anything into Politoed, it's an Electro Web, so Politoed will get another chance to move. Ditto is knocked out by a totally unnecessary crit. For game 1 at least, my Dream is dead. No more Foul Play into Overquill. Overquill gets the second minimize now, so it'll go +4 evasiveness, but Politoed is still able to click Haze, but it hasn't done it yet. And it does get the speed drops with Icy Wind, but of course Politoed's own speed has been lowered here. But I guess the big thing is, whatever comes into the Rotom slot will not have had its speed lowered. So if they can keep landing all their attacks into Overquill, which hasn't dodged anything yet, then this is fine for the Chatots. But we'll see. Oh, the Haze is coming out now, unless Politoed is knocked out first. We see Rain Dance on the Mouseholds. They did have another way to get some weather control. It's possible we see that to set up for a Swampert endgame, but looks like Mousehold just went for Protect here. They do have to deal with this Rotom still, somehow. But yeah, the Haze from Politoed can make Overquill pretty sad after Overquill did all of that work to get set up without actually ever dodging anything so far. Kind of unlucky for the Overquill, actually, in this game. But I'm just so curious about what this Rotom does. We see Mousehold Protect. Rotom will move next. Nope, Overquill moves next with the Protect. Will Politoed get this Haze off? It's just Electro Web again from Rotom, so that's going to be a yes. That also means it gets rid of all the speed drops on everything, but Mousehold should still be the fastest Pokemon here. But now Overquill is very threatened by that Population Bomb. Mousehold isn't even intimidated. So Overquill loses all its setup and might not get another chance. As Politoed got to sit on the field longer than I thought it might, and took its time revealing that move, but eventually it happened. Population Bomb and Feint are the other moves on Mousehold. We do see Population Bomb locked in here into Overquill. So, does it connect? How many times does it connect? At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Overquill took the 4th hit at 1%, but the 5th one lands, and Overquill is gone. All those minimized boosts, and it never dodged a single thing in this entire game. Electro Web comes out again from the Rotom, slowing these Pokemon down, but I think Politoed went for Icy Wind again. It's single target now. That is enough to knock out Rotom at this range. So what else do the Camerupt have? They have Liepard, and I don't think we've seen their last Pokemon, right? And who knows with this team? It could be one of their Megas, but it doesn't have to be. It is. It's Float. Okay, interesting. Mousehold's at -1 speed. That could make a difference to the move order against Floette. And if Floette can deal with Mousehold, then maybe, depending on its set and whatever other details, maybe it can... Obviously, the Camerupt are at a Pokemon disadvantage, but if Floette can deal with Mousehold, then maybe it can also beat the 2 water types. It's going to Mega Evolve here. Especially if Liepard sticks around and is able to click Sunny Day and get rid of Swampert speed control again. Because the Mousehold is the only thing threatening to be faster than Floette, most likely. Mousehold just protects here. I did just say that it has a big target on its back, so that might pay off for it. We see the Charm into Mousehold. It avoids that. That is the other thing, I guess. They can weaken the Population Bomb with Charm. So maybe Mousehold is not necessarily the main target. Floette doesn't choose a target anyway. It just goes for Dazzling Gleam, but Politoed takes that hit and goes for the Perish Song. I called that an Overquill countermeasure, but they managed to not reveal it while Overquill was still around. And that's probably GG. I do think Floette can beat these 3 Pokemon with Liepard supporting it, but I don't think it can do that before it drops to Perish Song. So the Chatots played a slow, patient game here. Clicked the Haze, I guess, at just the right time. At least it worked out for them the way they played that. Go rid of the Overquill, and then when the Camerupt were down to their last 2 Pokemon, I mean, it's effectively a Perish Trap, because nobody can switch. By nobody, I mean the Camerupt can't switch. We do see the Charm into Mousehold now, but Mousehold's damage is less important than how long it can stick around. Dazzling Gleam will take out the Politoed, but not the Mousehold. Mousehold holds on. Population Bomb into Floette. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All 10 hits, but they do less than 10% each. That did feel a little bit unlucky, actually. I feel like Population Bomb is a move that, because it hits so many times in a turn, I feel like it crits all the time. Like, I don't think it has a boosted crit rate, but you're just going to get a lot of crits in that large a sample of hits. It almost feels unlucky for the Chatots that they didn't get any crits there, but that is what happens, and so Floette holds on. But the most important thing, again, is the Chatots Pokemon holding on. So Swampert hits the field now. I mean, it might not be ideal that Politoed went down when it did. There maybe is still some chance. If the Camerupt have, like, Giga Drain on Floette... I think there are 2 Perish turns left, right? I might have miscounted, but if they have Giga Drain on Floette and it can one-shot Swampert, and Liepard can take out Mousehold with a Foul Play, then I think it's not impossible that the Camerupt still win this. It looked pretty impossible when the Perish Song happened, but both Pokemon protect here for the Chatots, but that means they're not safe to protect next turn necessarily. The Floette does show Energy Ball, which is even stronger than Giga Drain. I think the Camerupt can win this, right? I don't know what you do if you're the Chatots. Maybe you just go for double protect with both of your Pokemon. I don't know the odds of that working off the top of my head, but if either one works... No, you would need Swampert specifically to work, because Mousehold heard the Perish Song. It looks like they are going for it. Mousehold is faster than Floette, right? So if Swampert fails a double protect and is knocked out by Floette, then I think Floette wins the Perish endgame. So I think this might just come down to whether Swampert gets the double protect, which is not what I saw coming earlier in this game at all. I could be wrong. I could be misreading. I could be missing some detail here. But I don't know what's going to happen. This felt over a couple turns ago, and now it feels not over. Swampert doesn't get the double protect. Neither does Mousehold. Energy Ball is surely going to knock out Swampert. That means the Camerupt win, right? And they Foul Play into Mousehold, so we don't even get to see the Perish Song resolved in the end. Wow. The Chatots played patiently. They methodically got rid of the Overquill at just the right time. Although I feel like there was a chance that Politoed could have been knocked out earlier and that could have backfired on them, but that wasn't what happened. And Overquill never even managed to dodge anything anyway with its boosts, but I thought the game was over when the Perish Song went up. And the Chatots lost their Politoed then at just the wrong time and weren't quite able to hold on long enough against that Mega Floette. And again, it was a matter of a double protect, right? If Swampert gets the double protect, then Swampert wins the game. So another game comes down to that 1 in 3 chance, and once again, it doesn't pay off. And we'll skip ahead to game 2 here. Let's see what the Chatots lock in, at least. Take advantage of having that perspective. This time, Politoed and Swampert are in the back with Noivern and Maushold leading, so my dream is dead for also game 2, because Ditto is not even coming to this one. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's well, you know what? Let's watch it and find out. Dragonite Liepard lead, so different look from the Camerupt this time, although the Liepard is still a menace. Noivern and Maushold on the other side. Okay. Defog, Super Fang, Taunt, Tailwind. What does Defog do? Oh, it lowers evasiveness. Wow, they had so many Overquill answers. I wonder whether we'll see the Overquill again in this set, or the Camerupt will decide it's just not going to pay off. Population Bomb targeting the Dragonite, but Charm goes into Maushold first. That Charm Liepard's still looking like kind of a menace here. Tailwind goes up from the Noivern. Yeah, Charm Liepard looks great here because the Chatots are so committed to physical attackers. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Started the count late, but Dragonite takes those hits with a third of its HP left. Goes straight for a Dragon Claw. So it's physical Dragonite. I suspect we won't see it Mega Evolve, but hey, not impossible if for some reason they don't want to Mega Evolve Floette here. But it didn't happen this turn. Noivern takes the Dragon Claw at low HP, but it does hold on. And then what? Dragonite protects. I did not see what the Chatots went for this turn, but that's okay. We're about to find out. Encore will commit the Noivern to clicking that Tailwind again, so we don't get to see what the Noivern went for. You can go back and check if you want. I don't really think that's important too. The Maushold will also repeat its move, Population Bomb into Dragonite again, but Dragonite has protected around that. And now Noivern locked into Tailwind, not great for it, looking to switch out to Swampert by the look of it. Maushold still going for that -2 Population Bomb, potentially -4 if another Charm comes out, but we'll see. It does look like the Sunny Day Charm Liepard is giving the Chatots a lot of trouble in this set. They're having a hard time getting their bearings, I think, against a Pokemon that can take away a huge part of their damage output. But the Politoed was doing a good job of doing damage over time in Game 1. So it's possible that a late game Politoed will pull something off. But here's another Charm into Maushold, so it's going to go down to -4 now. Doesn't matter if Population Bomb gets those crits I was talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 6, no 7, and it feels genuinely unlucky to me that the Maushold has not been getting any crits with these Population Bombs. Takes a Dragon Claw reasonably well, at least it'll probably get another chance to attack. Swampert looking like it's going to Mega Evolve. I'm thinking about the move. Looks like it's going to be Wave Crash into Liepard, perhaps? Yep, that does seem to be what they're going for, and Maushold looking at that Rain Dance button. Okay. If Liepard goes for I like that, because if Liepard goes for Sunny Day here, anticipating a Politoed switch in, the Sunny Day will come out first because of Prankster, and then Maushold will immediately put the Rain up for real. That's a fun play by the Chatots. Dragonite protects. What does Liepard go for? It's just Charm into Swampert, so now there's no Sunny Day, but the Rain's going to go up from Maushold, and this Wave Crash will be boosted by that. So Swampert's at -2 attack, Maushold's at -4, but this Wave Crash I think is still going to hurt. And a lot of damage into Liepard can make a big difference here, because Liepard has been just a menace. They actually knock Liepard down to a Focus Sash, so it holds on for this turn, but it's at 1 HP. Getting rid of that Charm spam could be huge for the Chatots. It could save this whole game for them, I think, genuinely. Tailwind ends here. Swift Swim is active. Liepard can click Sunny Day, but again, Maushold has that slower Rain Dance if it wants to go for it. Or it can just knock Liepard out with Feint, which seems to be what they're locking in here. So, no weather control for the Camerupt this game, I think. And that means Swampert might get a chance to actually do its job here. It targeted Dragonite, so then potentially they could preserve Maushold and preserve the ability to switch Swampert out and get rid of the Charm drops. Liepard is knocked out by the Feint, so there's no more Charm coming out. The Charm offensive is over for this game anyway, and Wave Crash, boosted by Rain, is plenty to take out Dragonite. So the Camerupt are down to 2 Pokemon again. There is that Politoed in the back. I don't know if we'll see another Perish endgame, but again, they also have the option to switch Swampert out and get rid of the attack drops. And then we'll see whether I was gonna say we'll see whether Floette and Rotom can stand up to it. I mean, if you're the Calgary Camerupt, those are probably the 2 Pokemon you want to take on Mega Swampert. Doesn't look like there's a switch coming. It looks like the Chatots are just gonna double the Rotom here, but of course we know that Floette can always take out Swampert with that Energy Ball. And if it does so, the Mousehold is stuck on the field at -4 attack. Politoed is weak to the Energy Ball. Takes it better than Swampert, I'm sure, but we'll see if the Chatots still have enough to beat Floette. But first, they're going to Ice Punch Rotom. It does less than half at -2 attack, but then 1. That does nothing. 2. Citrus Berry. Will they get those crits now? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No Population Bomb crits. Still feels honestly shocking to me. And Rotom, I thought it would just Leaf Storm Swampert or something, but it actually shows Sunny Day. That's not great weather control because the Mousehold can click Rain Dance again, or the Politoed can switch in. The Chatots are still pretty advantaged in the weather fight here, but it looks like they're not going for the KO on Rotom anymore. Looks like they're going for Rain Dance and Wave Crash into Floette. These Pokemon are still charmed out of their minds, and they're still staying in and attacking. We'll see if they do enough damage. I mean, we know that Rain-boosted Wave Crash is still very, very strong, even at -2 attack. And we know the Rain Dance is going back up, so Swampert will get the Swift Swim back. It's just so threatened by Grass-type attacks from both of these Pokemon. Wave Crash into Floette, -2 attack, Rain-boosted. A lot of damage. Without the Charm, it would have KO'd, but Charm is here. Dazzling Gleam comes out, knocks out the Mousehold, knocks the Swampert down to 8 hit points. And we do now see the Leaf Storm from Rotom. Kind of funny timing, because it'll lower its special attack for the rest of the game, and the damage is kind of overkill to Swampert, but it's probably the only thing it has to hit Swampert. I forgot that Noivern's still here. Whoops. The Chatots had 2 Pokemon in the back, and they never got rid of those Charm Drops. And I don't think Noivern can threaten Floette. I don't think Politoed is very scared. Well, okay, I forgot how low Floette is, actually. That Wave Crash can make a big difference. Right, Rain-boosted Muddy Water, assuming there's not another Sunny Day coming out, because, I mean, Rotom's probably kind of afraid of the Icy Wind. I said that that Noivern could click Draco Meteor into threats, and I just saw it in its set that it doesn't have Draco Meteor. I don't think it had an attack at all, except Super Fang. But we're past that now. Muddy Water does come out. Floette protects around it. Rotom dodges it. Tailwind went up, by the way. I don't think I said that yet. Somebody, Politoed, I think, dodges the Electro Web the other way. Noivern takes it. Gets its speed drop, but with Tailwind up, that's not going to matter. The question is what else Noivern can do here. And I think the answer is not very much with these moves. The Defog is a fun anti-Overquill tech, but it does leave the Noivern really lacking on damage output in a situation like this. And with the team already having Haze and Perish Song and Ditto, I feel like Defog might have been one Overquill answer too many, although I can't really blame them for really not wanting to lose to that Overquill that's been such a menace so far. We see a Taunt into Floette, because there's really not much else Noivern can do here. I mean, Super Fang into Rotom might have been good to boost so that the Muddy Water has a better chance to KO, but it doesn't matter if Rotom just dodges every Muddy Water anyway, I guess. But Floette is knocked out by that Muddy Water, so Politoed being kind of tanky and able to do damage over time. Once again, looking pretty strong for the Chatots, as it takes that -2 Electro Web no problem as well. Yeah, Rotom having to click Leaf Storm into Swampert, also not great for it here. And it looks like Politoed will probably clutch this one up. I mean, unless it's about to get crit by a Leaf Storm or something. Once again, it's easy to zero in on something that's been the key Pokemon so far in the matchup. I think it's that Politoed for the Chatots that has made a huge difference in both games, even though it came up short winning Game 1. But I think it's about to win Game 2. The Electro Web knocks out Noivern, but Politoed will land an Icy Wind, taking out the Rotom, and we're going to game 3. And the Charm Spam was very disruptive into the Chatots for a while, but the Chatots, once again, they didn't overreact like I might have, judging by some of the commentary I've given here. They stuck to their guns. They got rid of the Liepard. And they recognized that the Swampert could still do the damage they needed for Noivern and Politoed to close this one out. So, no need to switch Swampert out. They had Pokemon in the back that were able to capitalize on what it could do with a still very, very strong rain-boosted Wave Crash. So now we go to game 3. The Chatots are bringing Noivern, Maushold, Politoed, Swampert again. We'll find out soon what the Camerupt have to answer that. As the leads are Liepard and Ceruledge for the Camerupt. Ceruledge is interesting when Politoed and Swampert have been such a big part of this set, but Ceruledge is immune to all of the damage from Noivern and Maushold, so I guess they're calling out the lead matchup there. Certainly a Population Bomb immunity is not a bad thing to have here. I'm just not sure Ceruledge can be trusted against... Well, it could be running Solar Blade, but then they have to win the Weather War to make that pay off. I'm not sure Ceruledge can be trusted against the Rain mode, but... yeah. We'll see what the Chatots have here. Maushold protects and avoids a Charm. We see Taunt into Liepard, so Liepard will not be spamming Charm and Sunny Day right now. It also won't be able to lock Maushold into Encore. They can Population Bomb Liepard if they want, knock it out through the Sash. Otherwise, Liepard is free to start clicking Foul Play into things, which is probably not ideal for the Chatots. It looks like they are going for that Population Bomb. And if they do lock this in, yeah, that could be very scary. That could make Swampert very scary. Oh, the Liepard switches out, okay. I was going to say, if they took out the Liepard here, then Swampert could be very, very scary in the back, because Ceruledge is probably not going to stand up very well to that. And Liepard wouldn't be there to mitigate the damage anymore. But the Camerupt avoid that fate. They switch Liepard out to Overquill to get the Intimidate on Maushold. Tailwind, Population Bomb, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a crit, finally. 8, 9, 10. Still not enough to take out the Overquill, but it does drop to 15%. Probably not in a great position to start boosting up, especially as the Taunt Noivern can prevent it from boosting anyway. Which makes me really think that Defog was kind of too much. Noivern couldn't really spare another move slot for this. But we'll see what they go with here. It looks like it is going to be Taunt into Overquill. Maushold is going to feint Overquill, so it can break through a Protect if Overquill tries to go for that to get some more recovery. Makes sense. Make sure the Taunt succeeds. You'd probably rather knock out Overquill, but you don't. There isn't a way to do that if it protects, so taunting it is the next best thing. Maushold, though, very low after that Bitter Blade from Ceruledge. There's probably not another Population Bomb coming out in this set. But, I mean, the key Pokemon is are the Swampert and Politoed in the back, right? Liepard still being around makes things tricky, but Politoed might just clutch up again. The feint comes out. Overquill did not go for Protect by the looks of it, but if it went for Minimize, that's not going to work. Oh, it just went for Barb Barrage. I guess knowing that it's such low HP, it's not going to benefit from the setup. Just goes for what damage it can get into Noivern. Not a whole lot, but Bitter Blade will take out the Maushold, though. I wouldn't be surprised to see Politoed come in now and start clicking Muddy Water, softening things up for Swampert. Although with Maushold having fainted, there's no Rain Dance, so maybe the Chatots have to be more deliberate than that about when they set up their Rain. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be Swampert, actually, which also makes sense here. Probably makes more sense because you have to manage your Drizzle, right? Or maybe you don't have to, but it's preferable to. And Swampert also is a giant threat into Ceruledge and Overquill. It's not like there was a bad option to bring in here for the Chatots. The question again is, what does this Noivern do once Tailwind is already up? And in this situation, once Overquill is taunted. Is that a taunt into Ceruledge that I just saw? I think so. I guess if Ceruledge switches, then they can stop Liepard from doing Prankster moves, or they can stop something from protecting. Or stop Ceruledge from protecting after this turn, but if Ceruledge protects now, of course that stops the taunt. Swampert will Mega Evolve. Swampert does look very strong here, especially if they can get another taunt into Liepard. Ceruledge does protect here. I saw that Swampert went for Earthquake. Very convenient to be able to click that safely next to Noivern. So that's one thing Noivern does. It just is another Pokemon that isn't hurt by its partner's Earthquake. This Earthquake won't hit Ceruledge, but it will knock out Overquill. So Overquill does not get a chance to be a menace in this game, and I didn't call it out earlier, but we know that Ditto didn't come to Game 3, so my dream is well and truly dead. No Overquill versus Overquill. Probably better for the viewers, but slightly disappointing for me. Liepard is back. Again, taunting that could be pretty significant for the Chatots, although there's still another Pokemon in the back, so Liepard might still get a chance to switch out. It is going to be Protect and Taunt here. And again, if Liepard is taunted, it can't Encore Swampert into Protect, so that makes this pretty safe. Unless Liepard protects, but we know that it doesn't have that move, so never mind. The Chatots know it doesn't have that move because they scouted its whole set in Game 1. I think we've seen all of its moves now anyway, but like I think Liepard has used all of its moves by this point. In fact, it definitely has. But the Ditto scouting was still good stuff. Swampert protects. Avoids a Charm. Here's the taunt into Liepard. It would have been interesting if we'd seen Sunny Day Solar Blade there. Of course, Swampert would have still avoided it, and they could switch Politoed in to get rid of the sun, but that's not what the Camerupt went for. Instead, it's Poltergeist knocking out Noivern. That does mean the Politoed has to come in now, and it can't switch out anymore, so this is the only drizzle that the Chatots are getting in this game. Liepard is taunted, so it can't click Sunny Day, but if it gets a chance later to click Sunny Day, there's not a lot that the Chatots can do about that anymore. But the question is, what can a Camerupt do about Politoed? I bet Poltergeist would do pretty good damage to it, but are they going to get the chance when Swampert is here threatening Ceruledge? There's the Muddy Water. We're going to see a Wave Crash into Ceruledge. Or just an Earthquake? They're hovering over Earthquake? They're going to hit their own Politoed with an Earthquake? I think calculating that the damage is worth it. Mega Dragonite could be the last Pokemon for the Camerupt. Or Rotom. Either one would be immune to Earthquake. But we saw Rotom lose to Politoed in an endgame last game after it had lowered its own special attack with Leaf Storm, which again is probably the only thing it has to hit Swampert. We're going to find out that last Pokemon soon because Ceruledge is knocked out by the Earthquake. Politoed took a lot of damage, so Politoed might be in trouble if Rotom comes in now. First we get Foul Play into Swampert, doing a lot of damage with Swampert enjoying its full attack stat, and then a Muddy Water misses into Liepard. I think Mega Dragonite would be in danger here against the Ice-type coverage that both these Pokemon have. Rotom could be interesting. I think Rotom could win this game. I don't know if Floette can win this game. Liepard can't click Charm right now. And I don't think Floette, judging by the damage in the earlier game, I don't think Floette takes a Wave Crash if Swampert is not charmed. Swampert looks like it's going to protect this turn, though, and I didn't see what Politoed went for. Actually, hold on, they backed up. Reconsidering. Wave Crash into Floette. Oh, the problem is they can protect, the Camerupt can protect Floette and Foul Play with Liepard. That's why the Chatots were thinking about a Protect there. That could happen, and that could make a big difference here. We'll see if the Chatots got the read right. Floette Mega Evolves. Does it protect? No. I think the Camerupt win this game, actually, if the Floette protects there. So I think that was basically a read that the Chatots had to make. Okay, the Foul Play goes into Politoed and not Swampert. I bet it was Floette Energy Ball into Swampert. But I think the Chatots saved their whole game by just attacking Floette there. I mean, I think it was a position that could go either way, and the teams had to make reads, and the Chatots got it right. And now Liepard is at 2%. I guess Politoed could miss all of its attacks, but it's not very likely. And actually, Swampert's going to knock out Liepard first anyway. So, thanks to a big Wave Crash at just the right time, finally not weakened by Charm, thanks to that taunt Noivern. Hey, everybody contributed for the Azure Bay Chatots in this one. They lost their Perish endgame in Game 1, but all their Pokemon played their roles perfectly pretty much the rest of the way. And Swampert was finally able to get that damage that it wanted into Floette. And it made all the difference as the Chatots take the win. That's it for Pool B, but of course, that still leaves us with Pool A. There's not a lot to cover in Pool A this week, though, because there are, this time, 2 sets outstanding that just have not been played so far, but will be soon. I'm going to have to check what they are because I don't have them from memory. What is the stab move anyway versus East Coast Espurr and Oceanic Oshawotts versus Minty Meloetta? Those 2 sets are yet to be played. As far as I know, they will be played. You know the drill. If and when they're played. So only 3 sets to get through in Pool A this week, and we start with the Dapper Digletts taking on Pendragon United. The Digletts bringing their rain mode. It's always fun when we get back-to-back rain modes like that, and potentially rain on both sides of this one, as we see Pelipper for the Digletts and Politoed for Pendragon United. They've brought their Mega Dragonite. They've brought their Mega Mawile. Dragonite is not as afraid of Swampert as Mawile is, and actually with Steelix on the Diglett side as well. But the Digletts also brought Gardevoir and Aegislash, so I don't know what the Mega of choice is for Pendragon United, and most of the time this season it's been Mawile, so maybe that should be my guess. Also, Weavile. Weavile is very threatening into Dragonite, but not so much into Mawile, so there are pros and cons to both options. Otherwise, it's largely the Pendragon United core that we're familiar with. Politoed, Farigiraf, doing their things. Pikachu is here, which is interesting. Pikachu very threatening into Pelipper. Not so threatening into Swampert. Well, it could have Grass Knot, but it's slower than Mega Swampert, so maybe there's a stray sunny day here or something. Who knows? Pendragon United also brings Staraptor. So that's an Earthquake community that can intimidate Pokemon like Weavile, Swampert, Aegislash if it's physical, and Steelix. Anyway, let's see. I don't know what's going to happen. Gardevoir leads with Weavile against Staraptor and Mawile, so we get Intimidate. I was about to say we get Intimidate both ways, but that's not true. We get 2 Intimidates one way. Gardevoir and Weavile are both at -2 attack now. Weavile probably cares more about that, but Gardevoir will switch out here to Steelix, as Staraptor protects, and so does Mawile. Mawile not Mega Evolving, so it has the option to switch out and come back in and Intimidate something again if it wants. Staraptor avoids Weavile's Fake Out. Mawile will switch out now to Politoed, as we see foul play from Weavile. Weavile not caring about the Intimidate because it's actually not using its own attack stat here. Kind of an unusual choice, but using Staraptor's attack stat to do 2/3 to Staraptor with a neutral attack there before getting hit by close combat, which knocks it down to its Focus Sash. So Staraptor very low, Weavile even lower. Both Pokemon pretty vulnerable here. And Steelix just going straight for an Iron Defense in the face of Mawile. We'll see how that idea ages against Politoed. Steelix, I would imagine, is pretty afraid of Politoed here, unless I'm missing something, which it could be. But the Iron Defense Steelix definitely looking like a threat into Mega Mawile, even if it's a bit out of position here. Staraptor now switches out to Farigiraf. Steelix does switch out, gets away from that Politoed. We see Gardevoir come back in. Foul play to Farigiraf reveals a Colbur Berry. Still does 27%, not terrible considering the Resist Berry. As Politoed lands a Water-type Weather Ball into what could have been Steelix, but instead it does a little bit more than half to Gardevoir. So the Politoed actually putting out a lot of pressure right now, making it hard for the Digletts to get comfortable. But this foul play Weavile, not at all caring about being double intimidated, still kind of doing damage whenever it wants so far. The problem is it probably can't do much to Politoed. Weavile actually switches out here. Steelix is coming back in. Gardevoir will Mega Evolve. I didn't even call out that it's Mega Gardevoir. To be honest, I was not sure. And it goes for Calm Mind. We see Icy Wind. Steelix takes only 20% from that. Gardevoir takes less. So Gardevoir's still going to hang around, but it is getting chipped down. But we saw in Pool B what kind of damage Gardevoir can do even without a Calm Mind boost. So that Calm Mind might prove well worth it. Still not sure what the Steelix's plan is. It's Wide Guard from Steelix. What is that covering for? Another Icy Wind, maybe a Muddy Water. Although Politoed has already showed Weather Ball. It could have both. I don't think it's super likely, but it's possible. I guess it also covers for like Farigiraf Hyper Voice, although that's probably not very scary at this point. But it is Weather Ball from Politoed. There's no spread damage coming out from that Pokemon. It hits Gardevoir pretty hard, but thanks to the special defense boost, Gardevoir holds on at 10%. Probably will get a chance to do something here before it drops. Actually, with Gardevoir at -1 speed, Farigiraf also outspeeds it, but Farigiraf does not double into Gardevoir. It lands an Energy Ball into Steelix, so the Wide Guard accomplishes nothing this turn. If Farigiraf had gone for Hyper Voice, Wide Guard would have stopped that, and Gardevoir would get the big Hyper Voice of its own that's probably coming out. Instead, Farigiraf shows that it has a way to hit Steelix, not for a ton of damage, but Steelix is in range of the next Energy Ball. And it's actually Draining Kiss from Gardevoir, not Hyper Voice, so that'll get its HP back up to almost half. And with the Calm Mind special defense boost, that could be pretty significant. This Gardevoir might be able to hang around for a while, even though it's been knocked to fairly low HP already in this game. Politoed protects here, as so does Gardevoir. But it's just another Energy Ball into Steelix from Farigiraf. So Steelix is knocked out. We don't get to see Iron Defense Steelix put in work against Mega Mawile. That means Mawile could still be a threat in the back at this point. We see Aegislash come in for the Digletts. Yeah, I feel like Mawile is kind of the wild card here. We'll see whether they still have a way to deal with it without Steelix. But they let Steelix go down against Politoed, so they... I mean, it seems like they think they have a way. Politoed switches out here to Staraptor. We see the Intimidate into Aegislash. Aegislash just switches out immediately to Weavile. Farigiraf protects. Gardevoir grabs another Calm Mind. Gardevoir is at -1 speed still, but it's not going to take much damage from Farigiraf now, and Weavile switching in safely, getting through the turn at 1 HP, able to threaten now a Fake Out into Staraptor. Except it actually can't because of Armor Tail. Never mind. But it's fine. Weavile still gets to put out pressure as it, despite my mistake there, as it actually goes for Triple Axle, outspeeds Staraptor and knocks that out. And now Farigiraf moves first, knocks out Weavile with an Energy Ball. Now Gardevoir can almost knock out Farigiraf with a Draining Kiss. Not quite, but it does get Gardevoir back to full HP. The question again is this Mega Mawile. Aegislash is back, but so is Mawile, and because Mawile preserved its Intimidate all this time, it does get an Intimidate into Aegislash. But now it just protects. Aegislash takes 20% from a Psychic. Gardevoir shows Hyper Voice, knocks out Farigiraf. The question is how much it does to Mawile. Aegislash goes for -1 Poltergeist into Mawile. I mean, I've been talking about Mawile as the Pokemon that could save this game for Pendragon United, but even with that Steel typing, I don't know how it's taking +2 Hyper Voice and then -1 Poltergeist. That's still probably a lot of damage. Well, we'll find out maybe. Mawile Mega Evolves, but actually... Oh, Gardevoir, though, with the speed drop, it's not as simple as just clicking Hyper Voice into Mawile. Gardevoir actually protects here, and it does avoid an Iron Head. Weather Ball and Aegislash knocks it out with a crit. Don't know if that mattered. And the question... Gardevoir has all the setup it wants. The speed drop is just kind of awkward for it, but the question is, can it deal with Mawile, especially in rain? So if it's running Mystical Fire, that'll be weakened. But it's also not running Mystical Fire. We've seen all of its moves. It only has Fairy-type damage. And the Hyper Voice... The +2 Hyper Voice takes out Politoed. Mawile protected here. Ninja Meerkat says, I win these in the chat, so we'll see. Gardevoir protects around an Iron Head, goes for the double protect, doesn't get it, and gets knocked out by the next Iron Head, so... The Digletts may be just trolling in that endgame, saying, I win these, and then clicking protect until they lost. But, yeah, that was interesting to see. I thought that... It really felt like the Gardevoir had a chance of, you know, the slow-rolling sweep there, but it just didn't have a way to deal with Mawile. And the fact that Politoed was able to put out enough pressure to get rid of the Steelix before Steelix could do anything to stop Mawile meant that Pendragon United's go-to Mega was just a menace that the other side couldn't really deal with. So let's see if the Digletts came up with something different in Game 2. Pelipper leads with Gardevoir against Staraptor and Politoed. Okay. One Intimidate here, but nobody on the field cares. Gardevoir protects. We see Tailwind from Staraptor, Weather Ball into Gardevoir, but it avoids that. And Icy Wind from Pelipper. So both sides going for speed control here. We see the Yashu Berry on Staraptor, weakening the damage. But more importantly, with the Tailwind up, the speed control doesn't matter that much here. For now, at least. Of course, Pelipper could also click its own Tailwind, potentially. Gardevoir switches out. Aegislash comes in on a Brave Bird. Staraptor's pretty strong, huh? That did almost 30% to Aegislash in shield form. And then the Weather Ball almost knocks it out, but not quite. Pelipper, no Tailwind, still going for that Icy Wind. At this point, it has offset the Tailwind boost, but Staraptor should still be faster than these Pokemon for now. But Pelipper also hasn't taken any damage. Staraptor switches out to Farigiraf. Aegislash transforms, goes for Shadow Sneak. What is it trying to hit with that? Politoed? Oh, yeah, I guess it's trying to do some damage to Politoed before it faints. Fair enough. But Farigiraf puts a stop to that. And the Weather Ball knocks Aegislash out. And Pelipper's still clicking this Icy Wind. Politoed is now at -3 speed, but the question is, what's it really accomplishing? Gardevoir is back, but it hasn't done anything yet in this game, and now one of its teammates is gone. It Mega Evolves in Calm Minds. Okay, so Staraptor being chased off the field is the one thing that could pay off here for the Digletts. They traded their Aegislash to get Gardevoir in a somewhat safer position to set up with Calm Mind. It's possible that pays off. They also have the speed control advantage now, pretty solidly after all those icy winds, which is a big difference from Game 1. Pelipper now goes for Hurricane, chips for Farigiraf a fair bit. The Weather Ball into Gardevoir does only 30%, with Gardevoir at +1 special defense. Farigiraf does now set Trick Room, and Gardevoir does not have a speed drop on it this time, so we'll see how that works out for Pendragon United. As Politoed does a third to Pelipper with an Ice Beam, Farigiraf Psychic does a little bit more than half on top, but Pelipper does hold on at 15% and shows a Citrus Berry. It's not taking that double up again, but the fact that it's also in range of Psychic now, but maybe the fact that it's not in range of Ice Beam will make a difference. Probably not. It's probably going to get knocked out by Psychic if it sticks around, but we'll see. Hurricane knocks Farigiraf down to 20, and Hyper Voice does take out the Farigiraf and do a lot of damage to the Politoed, so actually, yeah, Pelipper being out of range of Ice Beam could definitely matter. And the Gardevoir is starting to do its thing, but now Mawile is on the field in Trick Room. There's also no rain. Rain has ended. Pelipper has only shown Icy Wind and Hurricane. Mawile resists both, and Hurricane can now miss. At this time, last time Mawile was a giant threat to Gardevoir because Gardevoir had its speed dropped. This time Gardevoir doesn't have its speed dropped. The Digletts took an early speed control advantage in this game, like I said, but thanks to the Trick Room, Mawile still has the advantage now. It'll actually just protect this turn, though. Gardevoir also protects. Pelipper gets chipped down by an Icy Wind, but is not knocked out, and it goes for a Feather Dance into Mawile. So Pendragon United playing this safely, probably calling the Protect on the Gardevoir, and not letting their Mawile's attack stat get dropped this turn. The Pelipper does hold on, thanks to Farigiraf not being here anymore, but its attempt to help its teammates stick around doesn't really work out. Gardevoir now pressured off the field, switches out, Steelix comes in, and Weather Ball is the only water attack we've seen from Politoed, I think. And there's no rain on the field right now, but there easily could be again soon. Mawile Mega Evolves. Pelipper protects, but the Ice Beam goes into the Gardevoir slot, which means it hits Steelix, and it's not Weather Ball, but it still does pretty significant damage. It is less than half, but more than half combined with that Iron Head from Mawile. But it's now the last Trick Room turn. There's still no rain. Steelix probably wants Trick Room to be up because it's slow. Pelipper switches out to Gardevoir. Mawile switches out to Staraptor. They get the Intimidate on Steelix. It's Icy Wind from Politoed. It crits Steelix, and they get the speed drop on Gardevoir once again, just as the Trick Room ends. So despite what I said about the Icy Wind spam from the Digletts early in this game, Pendragon United have been absolutely in the driver's seat speed control-wise ever since that Trick Room went up, and they're not letting up on that now. Gardevoir switches out to get rid of the drop. We see Pelipper come back in, set the rain back up. Politoed protects. The Weather Ball doesn't really matter now because Ice Beam's going to start taking KOs on Pelipper and Steelix at this point. I mean, it does do more to Gardevoir at least. But yeah, Steelix has to be afraid anyway. Steelix, I guess, clicked Iron Defense last turn, but what's it going to do with that? Goes for Body Press into Politoed, but Politoed protects around it. Brave Bird from Staraptor will take out the Pelipper. Politoed is now free to attack the Steelix. Knocks it out with a Weather Ball. And Gardevoir has been switching in and out, trying to get the right position to get this setup game plan going, but now it's run out of teammates, and it just drops to a Brave Bird. Mega Mawile doesn't even have to hit the field again. And Pendragon United, I mean, they made all the right calls in this set, especially in this game. The speed control was really well handled by them. They made the right reads to get their Pokemon in position to succeed, but the other thing is they've been relying on Mega Mawile pretty heavily throughout the season, and sometimes it's worked out, sometimes it hasn't. But I guess when their opponent was fairly committed to a setup Mega Gardevoir game plan, then the Mega Mawile was very hard for the Digletts to deal with. But on the other hand, if the Digletts had focused on like a Mega Swampert game plan, then they have double Intimidate from the other side to deal with as well. So a tough matchup for the Digletts, I think it's fair to say. And the Staraptor made a real difference as the newest member of Pendragon United, helped to make this a tough matchup, being an offensive threat into Gardevoir as well as another Intimidator into Swampert. So I can understand why Gardevoir was the focal point, but then, yeah, they just didn't... The Steelix could never get comfortable against Politoed, and just couldn't deal with the Mega Mawile in the end. Great Mega Mawile set. Next, we have the Grampas taking on the Minnesota Marshadows. The Grampas They brought some other slow stuff, but they've also brought mostly their fast stuff. I think I see Pokemon like Espurr, Delphox, and Sneasler, and I don't think it's a Trick Room game plan. It is possible that Espurr or Delphox sets Trick Room for Kingambit or Torterra, but I think more likely they're trying to outspeed and overwhelm their opponents. With, of course, Espurr doing its Lumina Crash stuff, potentially, although there are 3 Dark types on the other side, so that might be easier said than done. Delphox being a powerful offensive threat into Pokemon like Toxicroak and Frostlass. I guess Sneasler is here to help them deal with the Dark types. It's obviously very threatening into Hydreigon and Houndoom. We'll see how it handles everything that the Marshadows have to throw at it. Kingambit is strong into Frostlass and Sableye and Oranguru, so Kingambit does make decent sense here. It's also just one of the best Pokemon in the game, kind of independent of speed control. It's just very, very powerful. And yeah, it can potentially stop some Frostlass shenanigans or some Oranguru shenanigans. I have no idea what Torterra is here to do. I doubt that we'll see it in the game. But it doesn't look very safe to bring to Frostlass, Houndoom, Hydreigon, etc. But yeah, the Marshadows are pretty well covered for the Psychic types. They brought 3 different Dark types. And then Sneasler doesn't especially want to deal with Frostlass or Oranguru, so as is pretty typical in these matchups, a lot will come down to how the Pokemon are positioned and what reads the coaches make. But both teams definitely have a lot of ways to deal with each other's main threats, and I didn't miss that it's Sableye versus Sableye. Once again, we do see that much of a mirror. I believe the Marshadows Sableye is the one that can Mega Evolve. I've been saying that all season, so I hope it's right. I don't think we've ever seen a Sableye Mega Evolve, so I'm not sure. Espurr leads... Nobody's corrected me in the comments, though, so at some point it's not my fault anymore, if I'm wrong. Espurr leads with Sneasler against Frostlass and Sableye. We see Frisk on the Espurr, not Speed Boost, so it scouts... Well, it confirms Mega Sableye. I could have just waited until literally turn 1 to give all those caveats. But yeah, the Frisk scouts the Mega Stones that these 2 Pokemon have to have. It does look like I was gonna say it does look like overwhelming fast game plan for the Grampas, but actually the fact that it's not Speed Boost Espurr makes me think maybe it is here to click Trick Room. But who knows? It's a tricky lead. It's hard to know what's coming, and Sableye is kind of the definition of a tricky lead Pokemon that makes it hard to know what's coming. So we're just gonna have to watch and find out on both sides. Espurr actually switching out here to the other Sableye. Frostlass Mega Evolves. Sableye switches in on Sableye's Fake Out, thus Sableye is prevented from flinching Sableye. As Sneasler goes for Dire Claw into Sableye and puts it to sleep. Okay, some good luck there for the Grampas. Blizzard from Frostlass, though. Some bad luck for the Grampas. Not only does it do more than half to both of these Pokemon, but it also freezes their Sableye. Sableye stays asleep. Sableye stays frozen. R.I.P. Sableye on both sides. Another Dire Claw. This time into Frostlass. It's resisted, of course, by both of these ghost types, and it does not get a status condition, and Blizzard takes 2 KOs. So the Marshadows pretty quickly jumping into the driver's seat on this one. Delphox and Espurr are the last 2 Pokemon for the Grampas, so I don't think it's a Trick Room game plan. Once again, they get to scout the Mega Stones that they already knew about. Delphox will Mega Evolve. We see Helping Hand from Espurr. Sableye wakes up and clicks Rain Dance, weakening this Heat Wave, but it's still enough to knock out the Frostlass. However, it does miss the Sableye. Both Sableye on both sides, apparently just an absolute nexus of hacks so far in this set. We'll see if that holds up the rest of the way. Sableye is such a cheesy Pokemon even without a bunch of luck factors around it. We'll see what happens. But now Hydreigon is here. That's probably not what Delphox wanted to see, but it is possible that the Grampas have some fairy coverage to throw at it. It's also possible it has a berry for that, but we'll find out. Delphox protects, but Sableye shows Feint and breaks the protect. Espurr, not going for fairy attack coverage, misses a Hypnosis into Hydreigon instead, and Hydreigon is able to knock out Delphox with an Assurance, strongly implying that it's physical Hydreigon, and Espurr shows that it has no damage into these Dark types as it goes for Helping Hand. If it had Dazzling Gleam, it would surely use it, and the Assurance, looking very, very powerful here, knocks Espurr out through a Cobra Berry. I have loved how the Minnesota Marshadows have been showing off obscure moves like, what was that one called? Comeuppance? And now Assurance throughout this season. They've definitely found a lot of fun techs, and this game was no exception. There was a ton of luck both ways with sleeps and non-sleeps and freezes. I'm not even going to dwell on it. It'd be a lot to try to untangle, but Also, yeah, maybe Espurr was not the best bring against 3 dark types when it doesn't seem to have a way to hit dark types. So I'm guessing we probably won't see Espurr again after this game. Kind of unfortunate for the Grampas that Frisk also did absolutely nothing useful for them in this game. But who knows? Maybe I think there's a good chance we see King Gambit in game 2, because King Gambit is pretty strong into everything we've seen so far from the Marshadows. But then maybe the Marshadows bring their Toxicroak to anticipate the King Gambit bring. And then they need something like Espurr or Delphox to threaten that, but we'll see. I'm guessing we see Delphox, but not Espurr. We do see King Gambit and Torterra against Frostlass and Sableye here. Frostlass Mega Evolves. Frostlass is pretty vulnerable to King Gambit. It would love to click Blizzard into Torterra. We'll see if it gets to. Oh, it does not get to. I didn't think about that, did I? Torterra shows Wide Guard. That comes out ahead of the Fake Out from Sableye. King Gambit, I thought would go for Sucker Punch here. I guess it probably went for Kowtow Cleave for the consistent damage, but I mean, just as well that it didn't go for Sucker Punch, because Frostlass actually doesn't go for an attack. Instead, it burns King Gambit with a Will-O-Wisp, and that's going to make it a lot harder for King Gambit to be the threat that I think the Grampas need it to be into a lot of this team. I mean, maybe they have Sneasler in the back to deal with the other dark types, right? They don't have to be all in on King Gambit, but it is Kowtow Cleave. It's into Sableye, so that also helps to explain why they didn't go for Sucker Punch. Does about 30% with that burn. And now we see Wide Guard again from Torterra. We see Feint from Sableye, and it breaks the Wide Guard. I saw this chat message just a moment too late. I feel like this is where I learned if Feint breaks Wide Guard. Yeah, it turns out that it does. Blizzard takes out Torterra. King Gambit only takes 20%. King Gambit will get a Kowtow Cleave, but again it's into Sableye, and it looks like Sableye is not even in range of the next one. Probably. Shadow Rider Calyrex Manshao player tech. Good callback to Scarlet and Violet, and probably also Sword and Shield. Shadow Rider Calyrex is so good. Great Pokemon. Big fan when I'm using it. Anyway, Delphox is here. It'll Mega Evolve. We see Rain Dance again from Sableye, once again weakening the Heat Wave. I'm getting Deja Vu as the Heat Wave also misses the Sableye. But it does connect with the Frostlass. Frostlass, though, shows Weather Ball. The Marshadows have absolutely cooked in the builder this week. The Assurance Hydreigon was already kind of nuts, but now it's not Freeze Dry Frostlass. What water type is it hitting with that anyway? It's Weather Ball Frostlass. That would give it single target ice type damage in its snow. And in rain. Which, I mean, they brought the rain, right? So this is clearly something they set up to weaken Delphox so Frostlass can take a hit from it. And then they have the water type Weather Ball to knock Delphox out. So that's a great way to cover your Pokemon's weaknesses there. Just really excellent Draft League tech. Flipping the matchup on Delphox with the Weather Ball Frostlass and Rain Dance Sableye. Frostlass is knocked out, though, by a Kowtow Cleave crit, which makes sense because a crit is just about the only kind of luck that we hadn't seen yet in this set. Sneasler will come in, but it's Toxicroak now revealed on the other side. They did bring it, as I thought they probably would. Close combat into King Gambit, knocks it out through a Choppleberry. But it does weaken Toxicroak's defenses. It takes a bunch of damage with a critical hit from Dire Claw. Is there a status? There's not a status. Can Sneasler save this one? Toxicroak switches out to Hydreigon. We see Feint from Sableye. Dire Claw into Hydreigon does almost half. No need to even click close combat, potentially. Still no status. If Sneasler had just rolled a status, it'd be in a great position, I think, to save this game, but well, maybe that's overstating it a little bit. But Hydreigon is free to click Protect here as Toxicroak switches in. Sneasler targets that slot again. And now Sneasler's probably going to get overwhelmed. And Toxicroak shows Icy Wind. I did not know it got that move. It'll slow the Sneasler down. And that frees this physical Hydreigon to click Dual Wing Beat. And the Minnesota Marshadows take a pretty convincing 2-0 win. I already said it. They absolutely cooked in this matchup. These were incredible Draft League techs all the way around. I don't know if that's the right turn of phrase. The physical Hydreigon, the Icy Wind Toxicroak, the combo of Rain Dance and Weather Ball to deal with the Delphox. Honestly, kind of mind blown. Like this is what Draft League is all about. Just finding amazing surprise techs to overwhelm your opponent, and that's exactly what they did. I almost wish we were ending on this one, but there's one more set. Hopefully it'll be just as entertaining. The Ontario Oguris are always entertaining, right? And they're still undefeated at this point. And they're taking on another of the stronger teams in Pool B so far, the Poblano Ho-Ho Peppers. I feel like I don't even have to do a team breakdown of the Oguris anymore. We've seen all this before. The Peppers, we've pretty much seen this before too, but notably Mega Metagross and Armarouge are their best ways to deal with Mega Floette. But I'm not sure they deal with a setup Volcarona. I wouldn't be surprised to see setup Volcarona. That Pokemon could go crazy here, potentially. Melodic could also be very strong. It's a little bit weaker into Primarina and Sinistcha. Honestly, Quiverdance Volcarona could go nuts. I'm not sure what the Mega Scrafty does. Maybe it just plays like a regular Scrafty and is their answer to Lycanroc and Mousehold. That's pretty reasonable. But it'll just... And maybe it can beat Volcarona under the right circumstances, but it'll just collapse immediately against Floette. Like, it'll see Floette and just keel over. The Peppers have their usual well-rounded mix of Pokemon. They have strong supports like Grimmsnarl and Sinistcha to complement offensive threats like Primarina and Metagross. The question is, can they deal with whatever kind of setup mode the Oguris have thrown at them this time? And I would really not be surprised if it's Quiverdance Volcarona, at least in part. But let's see. Melodic and Mousehold lead against Grimmsnarl and Metagross, so Melodic feels probably pretty comfy against these two Pokemon. Metagross Mega Evolves, we get a Light Screen immediately, and then Taunt into Grimmsnarl. That won't deny the Light Screen, but it could shut down... I was about to say it could shut down a Parting Shot. Of course, they'd like Melodic to get Parting Shot, but that's probably not going to happen anyway. I don't know, it stops a Reflect, if that ends up mattering. Iron Head does a bunch to Mousehold. We see a Citrus Berry, but it's still in range of another Iron Head. But Melodic going straight for that Coil. We'll see if the Peppers have a way to deal with that. I don't see it right now. The fact that Melodic got a Coil already is pretty hard for them to deal with, I would think. Like, maybe Sinistcha can come in and threaten it, but Sinistcha might not be strong enough, depending on Melodic's set. But we'll see. First, Incineroar is going to switch in for the Oguris. Intimidate both these physical attackers. Take an Iron Head, no problem. Scald into Metagross does not a ton. It's unboosted. In Light Screen. It also doesn't get the burn. But what's threatening Melodic right now? Not the Spirit Break. They don't want to click that into Melodic. I stand corrected. They do want to click that into Melodic, but that activates competitive, so it's a net special attack boost for Melodic. Grimmsnarl switches out to Armarouge as Metagross protects, avoids a Fake Out. Melodic just grabs another Coil. I mean, maybe it's like an Energy Ball Armarouge and it hits Melodic hard enough the rest of their team can overwhelm it, or it crits. It's not over for the Peppers this early. Metagross will switch out to Grimmsnarl. It is Energy Ball Armarouge. We see Rindo Berry, though, on the Melodic. That makes sense. That covers not only for an Energy Ball from Armarouge, but also from Primarina and also from Machagotcha. Looking at these 6 Pokemon, at least, Grass-type damage was the most obvious thing that the Peppers could use to threaten Melodic, especially since Coil already helps it cover for Mega Metagross Thunder Punch. So Rindo Berry was probably just the right item to have on Melodic this week. Solid prep by the Oguris. And at +2 accuracy, they get their Intimidate into Armarouge, no problem, so Armarouge cannot safely click an Energy Ball again right away. Flare Blast does a bunch of damage to Grimmsnarl, which has never managed to set a Reflect. Grimmsnarl clicks Parting Shot into Melodic. That is probably not the move. That is going to send that Pokemon to +4 special attack. As Metagross comes back in, Armarouge has to sleep this turn, and then it gets knocked out by a +4 Scald. And Flare Blast does a lot to Metagross, and it looks like the Peppers probably just don't have a way to break through, unless Sinistcha can do it. Maybe. That's not me asserting Sinistcha could do it. I realize that's how that tone sounded. The full thought is, unless Sinistcha can do it. I don't know if it can. Melodic is at +4. We haven't seen his last move yet. It could be Protect. Excellent chances Protect or Recover. It might well not be an Ice-type attack, but... And I'm sure Sinistcha still takes a +4 Scald through Light Screen, but Incineroar is still here to click Flare Blitz. So Sinistcha's not safe. We see Psychic Fangs into Melodic. That actually does decent damage. Mega Metagross is just so strong that if you could land a Grass-type attack without having to worry about the Rindo Berry, then that plus Metagross will probably be enough to beat this Melodic, but the Rindo Berry looks like it probably is going to make the difference in this game. And oh yeah, Melodic doesn't have to click Ice-type damage into Sinistcha. It can just put that to sleep with Hypnosis as well. No Machagotcha here. Flare Blitz takes out the Metagross. That was the last big offensive threat that the Peppers had. Sinistcha's super vulnerable. The Reflect is finally going to go up, but Melodic takes the opportunity to knock out Grimmsnarl with a +4 Scald. And Sinistcha, it is going to take a Flare Blitz through Reflect. It looks like it takes another one, but even if it wakes up and beats Melodic, which it might do, which it does, I think it just drops to this next Flare Blitz. Yeah. Maybe not. It looks like it might be a roll. Okay, it takes the Flare Blitz, gets favorable roll, but guess what? The Oguris still have 2 Pokemon in the back. One is Mousehold, but I don't know what the other one is. We're not going to find out, as Mousehold will just taunt Sinistcha and Incineroar, Mental Herb, into Machagacha, but Incineroar takes that hit, even with a crit, and so does Mousehold. And even with that recovery, Sinistcha's in range of the next Flare Blitz. And I finally get to finish my thought, Incineroar takes the KO. Didn't even see the 4th Pokemon for the Oguris. And now we go to game 2, and the Peppers are going to have to show a better answer to Melodic, but that Rindo Berry makes Melodic really hard for them to deal with. Maybe they can overwhelm it with Metagross before it gets 2 coils. And the Psychic Fangs does pretty reasonable damage even after. But if there's like a Rage Powder Volcarona this game or something, or, you know, Incineroar intimidates Metagross after it Mega Evolves, that's not very safe for the Peppers either. The one thing I know is the Melodic benefited from playing aggressively in game 1, just clicking Coil right away when the Peppers were out of position to deal with that. So they're going to have to make sure this game that they're not out of position to deal with that. But then maybe that creates an opening that the Oguris can capitalize on, say bringing Volcarona against a likely Metagross lead. Let's find out. It is Volcarona lead with Incineroar against Primarina and Grimmsnarl. Okay. So I thought we'd probably see a Metagross lead to try to have a threat into Melodic right away. The Peppers have gone in a different direction, maybe calling the Oguris adjustment and adjusting for it. Let's see if that pays off for them. Fake Out goes into Primarina. Light Screen up. Volcarona does just go for Quiver Dance, so I got that right at preview. It is Quiver Dance Volcarona this week. And we'll see if the Peppers have an answer to this. Primarina is probably the best they've got, but Volcarona protects. We see a Reflect. Primarina now will take a Parting Shot. So it's at -1 special attack, and Volcarona is at +1 special defense. And now Melodic is also here. Primarina goes for Surf. It hits its partner, Grimmsnarl. That's an interesting tech. Is Weakness Policy in the game? I don't think it is, so it's not Weakness Policy Armarouge. So I'm surprised to see Surf instead of Hyper Voice. But anyway, that's not doing much. Primarina switches out to Sinistcha, but Sinistcha has got to be so vulnerable against Volcarona. I guess the one thing the Peppers have going for them is they can Parting Shot Volcarona without actually boosting it by doing that, like with Melodic. Grimmsnarl will do that. Primarina will get back in, and Sinistcha switches in on Primarina's Giga Drain, targeting, or on Volcarona's Giga Drain, targeting Primarina. So it doesn't take much damage. So the Peppers are mitigating the damage from the Oguris pretty well here, but the question is still, can they deal with this Melodic? And in this position, maybe they can, because I think the Primarina probably has Energy Ball. And if so, they're threatening 2 Grass-type attacks into Melodic, so they can break through the Rindo Berry with that. But Melodic goes for a Coil first to end this turn. Volcarona protects. Melodic just goes straight for another Coil. Let's see if their greed is punished. Machagacha comes out first. That'll break the Rindo Berry and do some decent damage as well. And it's just Surf from Primarina again. So there's no follow-up with an Energy Ball. I don't know what I make of this Surf. But there's no Energy Ball to go for the KO after the Rindo Berry is gone. Volcarona gets a Giga Drain now into Primarina. At unboosted special attack into Light Screen, doesn't do a ton. Melodic just gets that +2 accuracy Hypnosis into Sinistcha though, so now we're back to Sinistcha games. The Surf damage is adding up on Volcarona. So that's something, and it's doing some damage to Melodic as well. I guess the spread damage pays off, I just don't know why it's not Hyper Voice. Flamethrower takes out the Sinistcha though. And it's going to be even harder as Melodic reveals its last move, Surf. Once again, I'm not sure the Peppers have a way to deal with it, even if they can beat the Volcarona here. Or, not Surf, Recover is Melodic's last move. Volcarona takes some more damage from a Surf, it's still here. The Scrafty comes in, it has Intimidate, it boosts the Melodic. Mega Scrafty, probably not the Mega of choice against this Melodic game plan, as it Mega Evolves, gets Intimidate again. Gets Melodic to +4. I feel like the Metagross was necessary to try to overwhelm Melodic, especially if they don't have a Grass attack on Primarina. And they didn't bring Armarouge to this game, so they just had the one Grass attack user. I feel like if you're doing that, Metagross is your best bet to try to knock out Melodic before it can get going. Scrafty just boosts it. Primarina gets crit by a Giga Drain for good measure. That'll help Volcarona stick around longer. Melodic just playing patiently, recovering up again. Scrafty shows Thunder Punch. Okay. So that's some more coverage from Melodic. That is something. That could have done a lot of damage before the 2 coils, or if it got a crit. It could also paralyze Melodic. None of that happens. Primarina shows Moonblast into Volcarona. Doesn't do a whole lot. But yeah, Scrafty coming in and Mega Evolving boosted Melodic twice, and that's a pretty big liability for the Peppers. Another Giga Drain here will take out Primarina thanks to that crit earlier. Melodic still playing it safe, just goes to the Hypnosis into Scrafty for now. Light Screen fades, Grimmsnarl's back, it can go for another Light Screen, and it does. Scrafty still takes 30% from a Flamethrower, but it does take a +4 Scald after the Light Screen, so that's something. But it stays asleep. And we know Grimmsnarl's only attack is Spirit Break, so that would also boost Melodic if it went for that. But first, Volcarona, not letting Melodic pad its stats, takes the KO on Scrafty. The Scald into Grimmsnarl does less than half with no burn, but Grimmsnarl is never winning this. And also, it does get burned by Volcarona Flame Body after clicking a Spirit Break into that Pokemon. And the Oguris, they don't pad Melodic stats, but they do use it to take that last KO. And really, the Rindo... I keep talking about key Pokemon in a lot of these matchups. There's been a pattern that stood out to me this week. There was a key item in this week, the Rindo Berry, getting Melodic through Game 1 and showing that the Peppers just didn't have enough answers outside of Sinistcha and that Armarouge Energy Ball to deal with it. We never even saw the Mega Floette. Melodic just overwhelmed the Peppers. The Oguris take a commanding 2-0 win. They remain undefeated in Pool B. Pool A. They remain undefeated in Pool A. I guess they're also undefeated in Pool B. It is technically true that they've never lost there. 2/3 of the way through the season, one undefeated team remaining in each pool, and people in the Discord have remembered, where I didn't, that they're also the 2 finalists from last season. Will anyone defeat them? There's still a third of the season left, and then I think 3 weeks of playoffs. So we're halfway through everything. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, including the outstanding results from the 2 sets we didn't get done in Week 6. There's still a lot going on in the PDL. Stick around and find out, as we head into the home stretch of the regular season, just how things are going to shake out.